Mark, and you're listening to Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. Love the fact that TuneIn's part of our family. We're going to grow together and do some amazing things, so thank you.
Big 12 Today with Ari and James, Monday through Friday, 8A to 11A Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
And away we go on a Tuesday. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us. Along with James Westling, I'm Ari Temkin. Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. James, how are you?
Fantastic.
Got the Big 12 baseball tournament getting underway tonight. We'll have the first two rounds before the 9, 10, 11, 12 seeds can potentially meet up with the top seeds in the Big 12. So it's the top seeds with that double bye. The rest playing Tuesday and Wednesday to figure out who gets into the full-on bracket. We've got regionals starting later this week. Huge story when it comes to Brendan Sorsby, and an even bigger story when it comes to the CSC. What's new in your life?
Well, one of my favorite things, as of late, we've been attending, you and I both, have been attending a lot of youth basketball games. I go into full scout mode. Like, I'm looking for the next star point guard or Wemby at the 8-year-old, 9-year-old,
Oh, yeah, there's plenty
level.
of Wembys we see all the time.
It's like, that kid, he looks like he could grow into those feet. That could be a Wemby right there.
That 10-year-old, man, I tell you, it's 7 feet tall at 10 years old.
Usually it's the point guard position. We watched a game a couple of weeks ago, and this team was incredibly undersized but super skilled, and I'm pretty sure they were playing up 2 or 3 grade levels, and I turned to my wife and I said, see that kid right there? I said, that kid's going to be the starting point guard at Texas Tech someday. He's probably a first grader, had sick handles, was playing, like, could barely bounce the ball in terms of, like, his hand size, but he just had, like, and one mixtape handles. It blew my mind, some of the athletes you see at this level. But Wemby with the 40 burger last night, got to feel good about your Spurs.
Yeah, I go the other way when it comes to that stuff, by the way. As impressive as a kid might be, I'm like, kid sucks.
Just shouting overrated from the stands.
Just
Head
what are you
case,
even showing up? You're terrible.
character flaws, head case.
Red flag. Didn't shake hands with the team after. Red flag. No handles.
I'm
And then I
here
get
for
out
it.
on the floor, and he's like, the kid's shooting, and I'm like, dribbling away from him. Stealing the ball from him. Like, I thought you were good. 10 years old.
So Wemby last night, he only made 1 3. He only took 2. He's a very capable three-point shooter. So in his rookie year, he made 128 threes. There are only 2 other 7-footers in NBA history to make more than that number in their rookie year. Can you take a stab at who they may be?
Rasheed Wallace.
Not 7 feet tall.
You sure?
6'11". All right, I'll give you a hint. One of them was also on the floor last night.
Chet Holmgren.
Chet Holmgren.
Okay.
The other one, let me give you another
Who,
hint.
by the way, needs to get in the gym.
Like,
It's funny because as much as people talk about how Wemby looks like a baby deer, like Chet Holmgren's like, what is he relative to a deer?
yeah, we'll get him some designs for sport creatine. All right.
Needs a lot of it.
Let me give you the other hint. The other hint would be that this happened. This player was on your favorite team, Da Bulls, and shout out Arizona.
Chase Budinger?
No. Taman, anything? Nothing?
Oh no, what was his name? Not Chase Budinger. What am I talking about? It's Laurie Markkinen.
Got it.
Wow.
Ding, ding, ding.
He's a 7-footer.
Oh, yeah. Made 145 threes. He is listed at 7'1", 240 pounds.
I feel like Rasheed Wallace is 7 feet tall. I'm gonna go with Rasheed Wallace as the third.
Let's see what. Okay. Did Rasheed Wallace even make that many threes?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Believe so.
He's
Good.
listed at 6'11", 225,
Got it. He's 7 feet tall.
according to NBA reference.
I measured him once.
I like. All right, how many threes did he make? So he
So
averaged.
are you trying to say that because of Wemby, 10-year-old should just hang it up and just shouldn't play basketball? It's like, we'll just pack it up. You got no shot here.
He's insane. And the way he plays, I never thought we would see another Giannis in terms of guys that big, that can move like that can handle like that have the wingspan like that. And Giannis was never really a three-point shooter, or isn't. But I just didn't think we'd see a player that kind of fit that mold, because to me, he was a revolutionary player just in the way that he played. Winning a championship with the Milwaukee Bucks kind of says it all. But Wemby is that on steroids.
Yeah, I think people are going to get very sick of Oklahoma City and the San Antonio Spurs playing in the Western Conference Finals every year, because get ready for it. This is what's coming for the next decade. And, yeah, I would imagine both of these teams are going to win a lot of championships, and probably the Spurs are going to win a lot of them. A lot of championships. All of them. I mean, they have a cheat code. They have a 7'6" cheat code. There's really no defense for him other than hoping he misses. That's it. That's it.
I mean,
please miss.
Why are we having the LeBron MJ debate when we have a player who 7'4" is what he's officially listed at, but he looks like he's 8 feet tall and is only 22 years old?
In the second overtime last night, he was at the free throw line. He took one dribble and dunked. And it wasn't like a one dribble travel. It was a one dribble and dunk. He was basically at the basket from the free throw line. The dribble was sort of innocuous. Didn't make a difference.
Oh, yeah. He can get from the 3-point line to the rim in 2.5 steps. Like, it's – and even the numbers that he's put up. Double-double each of his first 3 seasons. Averaged a quiet 25 points per game. Like, I think we've missed what's in front of us in terms of what could be the greatest of all time, because he's not really a traditional guard, and maybe that's part of it. Like, there's been so many great traditional bigs over the course of time that how would we even define him?
I mean, if he is 7'4", that means he's taller than most of the guys we're talking about in this conversation. Sorry, that means he's a foot taller than most of the guys we're talking about in this conversation.
But he's also taller than any other guy we would have in any conversation.
Right.
Taller than Shaq or Kareem or Hakeem or any of the traditional Wilt, any of the traditional post guys that you think of in that conversation. Bill Russell.
He's like a foot taller than Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
I mean, whether he's 7'4", 7'6", dude's like a foot taller than Michael Jordan, and he's got handles like a guard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kept watching the Spurs Western Conference Finals game last night, thinking like, should I be impressed or mad?
Why would you be mad?
Just, get used to it. They're going to be winning it every single year. Because obviously it's not just about Wemby. They've got a great supporting cast around him. There are a lot of stupid teams in the NBA that just traded away draft picks to the Spurs, which they've turned into Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper. And, well, Harper was from the Spurs being bad. But, even what's his name wasn't even playing last night. And they still...
De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox wasn't even playing last night.
Yeah. He's supposed to play in Game 2. He wasn't even on the floor. And you go on the road and beat a team that was really... I think they finished 64-18, the Thunder, but they threw their last 2 games because they'd locked up the one and they just sat everybody. So, that's a team that was 64-16 essentially going into the playoffs. The other thing about the Spurs is, they've hit. They've hit on their draft picks. Yes. I did not think Dylan Harper would be this productive right away. Because he played at Rutgers, nobody knew a lot about him. Same thing with Castle. He was probably the 3rd or 4th best player on that UConn team. He's going to be a star in this league if he isn't already. They've hit on a lot of dudes.
Yeah, it's what they do. Spurs are very, very good at that.
Even Carter Bryant. Carter Bryant, who we saw at Arizona and thought, man, he should really come back to college one more year. Lottery pick. I thought the Spurs took him way too high. He had better numbers his rookie season in the NBA than he did his 1 year at Arizona. They saw something in him that they knew they could develop.
Yeah, there's a pipeline between Arizona and the San Antonio Spurs. Richard Jefferson, Steve Kerr, just name a few. Just to name 2.
Yeah.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We got a busy show today. Pete Nakos from On3 joins us coming up in about 30 minutes. We're now to break down the latest on the Brendan Sorsby saga, which added a different wrinkle, or a layer, I should say, last night. But I would argue an even bigger layer to this is what is very quietly being played out between the CSC, the Power Four created College Sports Commission in order to govern NIL based on the House settlement. The SEC and the Big Ten are now basically discussing breaking away from the NCAA and the CSC entirely. So here, what you have here is the policy that was enacted by the CSC to police, the policy that was enacted by the Power Four that was set to be policed by the CSC. You have a lot of schools that have made promises on NIL to players above and beyond the $20 million or $21 million that was agreed upon. And they are having some of the deals rejected because those deals are being, siphoned through Playfly and Learfield, the media partners of these universities. So basically, a lot of schools figured, all right, well, we could pay this NIL money and guarantee this NIL money, and then we'll just plug it in to see the CSC algorithm through Playfly or Learfield. And basically what the CSC is saying is that's not a legitimate business outside of your purview. And so instead of following the rules, basically what the Big Ten of the SEC are saying is we're going to leave and do our own thing. Jamie Pollard, the athletic director at Iowa State, had this to say about the entire situation.
It's frustrating because collectively the four conferences created the CSC, and we spent a lot of money. The four commissioners spent a lot of money creating the CSC. And so then to have two of the conferences not want to adhere to it is perplexing to me, because then it's like, well, why did we spend the money? If you didn't want rules, then why did you create this entity? That's what's frustrating to me. The same people that say they want rules only want rules if they don't apply to them. I mean, I said it 3 years ago. Yeah. Let them break away. I'd say I would turn it around and say we should break away from them. Let them go, but they have to go in all their sports and see how fun it is to play baseball and softball and track when it's just the 20 of you, and that's what I think we should do. But I'm one person, and that's probably a little more draconian, but that's how I feel about it. Like, let's quit talking about it, quit threatening, go do it. But if you're going to do it, you don't get to just do it in football and then keep all your other sports with us. No, take them all. See how fun it is.
Jamie Pollard with a couple of really pointed comments. First off, basically adding color to the idea here that, like, the CSC was created by these Power Force programs and commissioners, and now it's the same commissioners that are essentially rejecting it. And then Pollard, with the icing on the cake, in my opinion, and I completely agree with him. Like, go, bye, stop threatening. Like, yeah. we're over this.
The thing I love most about just him speaking out in this way is he is saying what every fan outside of schools in these two conferences thinks and feels about them in that entire situation. And the power. It's not about fairness, it's about power. And Greg Sankey now has support from SEC presidents to break away and do their own thing. That gives him even more power. But the whole concept of spending millions and millions of dollars to build the CSC and then blow it up because they're actually enforcing it, they're enforcing what you agreed to, and it's taking away some of the, for lack of a better term, competitive advantages, which is probably putting it lightly for those two conferences. Like, good for Jamie Pollard, dude, to have the backbone to get out there and say that and say bye, and then, okay, good luck putting together a track and field event or a baseball schedule or a soccer schedule or a softball schedule. Have fun.
Yeah, according to the latest, the SEC and the Big Ten have been actively exploring a separation from the NCAA to operate their own governance system, enforcement arm, and potentially hold only interconference competition. One Big Ten AD told Yahoo Sports, quote, each league governs itself and plays only games within the league. What would that do to the sport? What would that do to college football? What would that do to college athletics?
So they wouldn't necessarily play each other. They would only play league games in their own league, or are they combining to become one, and then you play teams from that pool?
No, each league governs itself. There's no way that they would combine because the Big Ten and the SEC have tons of money, and they're incentivized to separate, to not stay together.
Mm-hmm. The biggest question I would have is, what does that mean for the college football playoff? What does that mean for the NCAA tournament?
Oh, they're still going to hold the playoff. Maybe they'll invite other teams, or maybe the other teams will say, we're fine.
So the SEC and the Big Ten would have their own playoff with just SEC and Big Ten schools?
Yes.
And then you'd have another college football playoff with everybody else?
I don't know.
Right. Like, those are the things I think about long term. What would the NCAA tournament look like? Well, if you're not part of the NCAA, you can't play in the NCAA tournament. You're going to have your own tournament where it's basically going to be like the Players Era Festival for the SEC and the Big Ten postseason? Man, college sports would look very different.
I mean, this definitely feels like a situation in which, like, you're almost leveraging against yourself. Like, the Big Ten and the SEC feel like they're in such a leverageable position, and in some ways they are. But it's at some point, like, the more leverage you try to exploit, the more you're really leveraging against yourself. I'm like, okay, yeah, like, that sounds great. Go do it. Like, go put on all these tournaments. Oh, you don't want to have softball anymore. Oh, you don't want to have baseball anymore. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to put on your own baseball tournament?
Right.
The SEC's not walking away from baseball. You're going to put on your own baseball tournament?
How many teams in the Big Ten even have baseball? Like, that's another thing. What do the other sports look like numbers-wise? It just sounds incredibly messy. It sounds like a threat. Like, that's what this whole thing
Well, it sounds like an empty threat.
Yeah.
But it's a continual empty threat. That's why it's like they're leveraging against themselves. Like, at some point, we're going to call your bluff, and then what do you have?
Right.
Like, the Lakers can't play the Lakers every game, you know? Like, as much as Major League Baseball would love the Yankees and Red Sox to play every game, that has a shelf life.
I mean, essentially, to me, it boils down that these two leagues don't like the fact that the CSC is rejecting some of these deals. Like, it's taken them a long time, right? There's been mountains and mountains of paperwork and deals, and they're short-staffed, and they're going through all this with the clearinghouse. And now, like, this is their version of throwing a fit.
Right. I mean,
Like, if these deals aren't going to go through, okay, we'll just leave.
I mean, it's basically their threat the entire way. Oh, give us what we want or we'll leave. Okay. Give us this or we'll leave. Okay. At some point, that, like, the shelf life is gone, right? Like, just leave. Okay, bye. Bye.
And some of the numbers are staggering, like the Nebraska case that just got pushed through. So Playfly guaranteed $7.5 million in NIL to 18 football players. The CSC pushed back, said, no, that's not legit. There's been $250 million in third-party deals submitted since January, the last 5 months. The SEC and the Big Ten account for more than 75% of that. I mean, so we're talking big dollars. And so their rebuttal to the Nebraska case is we're just going to leave? Like $7.5 million to 18 football players, CSC's like, no, I don't think that's going to fly. No pun intended. So they say, all right, we're out. We'll do our own thing.
We'll do our
okay,
own thing.
good luck.
I mean, it really just speaks to the whole deal itself, right? And just the deck of cards it's built upon. You know, and I mean, really what you had here was Nebraska, and we'll just use Nebraska as a filler here, but all these schools have done this. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there's Big 12 and ACC schools that have done the same thing. All right, we're going to guarantee you X amount of dollars. We're going to guarantee you X amount of dollars. We're going to guarantee you X amount of dollars. And that's all above the $21 million that was agreed upon. So those deals now are funneled through the CSC. And they're basically using the backbone of Playfly or Learfield to underwrite the deals that won't fit into the rev share. And, I mean, you could argue that is legitimate, right? And that this speaks to the just ridiculousness of this establishment of the CSC in the first place. How are you defining what a legitimate business deal is?
Yep.
And, like, what it looks to be on paper may be completely different than what it is in reality. How are you policing that?
Yeah.
They used to talk about, like, these, you know, paper classes or paper jobs where you get paid just to show up, and sometimes you didn't have to show up. I mean, that's essentially what's happening here, except that now you need paperwork to at least show that they're doing something.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I saw a screenshot, this was a couple of weeks ago, of an athlete that was getting paid like 6 figures for each social media post, and they went and tracked, and the player wasn't posting, but that's how they were itemizing the payments to the player. And it was very vague, didn't have a lot of detail, and very incomplete. But also, like, I think about $7.5 million to 18 players, that's a good chunk of change. What happens when you've guaranteed that money to these players and then you get pushback from the CSC? Like, that's egg on Nebraska's face. Okay, $7.5 million that now we don't have, or we don't have legitimately to get to you. Like, that just creates a whole nother locker room culture, like, player. If I'm guaranteed millions of dollars and I haven't seen a penny of it, like, how are you going to interact with your coaches, your teammates, everything else, like, behind the scenes? That's the next layer of stuff.
Yeah, well said. Which, to me, is the perfect segue now to talking about Brendan Sorsby and why the Sorsby story seems to be a much bigger deal than the CSC story. That, and would this story, Sorsby story, would be this big of a deal if you were at LSU or Texas? We'll get to that next. This is Big 12 Today and Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Jackson's in trouble now. David Bailey, he is a sack machine. Third and 8.
This is Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, and we're visiting with Pete Nakos from On 3 in about 11 minutes from now. Along with James Wessling on social at James Wessling. I am Ari Temkin on social at Ari Sports. Well, it's official. Brendan Sorsby's legal team, led by Jeffrey Kessler, has filed an injunction. At the same time, Texas Tech had a press release go out that formally declared Sorsby ineligible, according to Texas Tech, which is essentially a procedural step so that Tech can then file for reinstatement with the NCAA. Tech and Sorsby are aligned. There's also a line in that press release about the health and well-being, and that language is deliberate. It reinforces Kessler's mental health framing in court. We also learned some specifics from an affidavit filed for the injunction, James. Sorsby admits in the affidavit to placing small bets on between $5 and $50 on Indiana football in 2022 as a true freshman on the scout team with no chance of playing. Bet only for Indiana to win, never against his own team, and never used non-public information. Said the bets were to, quote-unquote, feel more connected to the team. He also got pretty deep into gambling, including betting on Romanian soccer and Turkish basketball, James.
Bro was real deep. Romanian soccer, Turkish basketball. He was betting on some very obscure sports. And really, this is the first time that we've heard from Brendan Sorsby. Not directly speaking to the public, but in this sworn affidavit. Like, this isn't a leak. This was sworn, public, submitted. And the quote that I rationalized placing those bets as a way to feel more connected to the team, to root for my friends, and to feel like I had a real, quote, stake in the games that I was otherwise not involved in. And then to double down and say, because the Indiana football team was not a very strong competitor in 2022, I lost most of the bets I placed, as if winning or losing is going to move the needle. And Indiana was bad that year. They were 4-8. But yeah, I saw that email go through yesterday, and it was very confusing because it said Brendan Sorsby ruled ineligible by the university. And I thought, okay, is that it? I go on Twitter. I'm like, is this breaking news? What's happening? And then to your point, it was just a procedural step to get him reinstated. But from a PR standpoint, like, you hear those quotes and you read that and it doesn't look good. But does that have any impact in any way on how this plays out?
You know, it's kind of funny. On the one hand, we have this Big Ten and the SEC rejecting the CSC and saying we're going to move away from the NCAA because we don't like the rules. On the other hand, I have read so much that's been written about how Sorsby broke the rules. He should be punished for it. Like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here.
Make it make sense.
How are both of those things true at the same time? And why is the Sorsby story the bigger story here when, like, at the top of this food chain here is the Big Ten of the SEC being like, they're rejecting too many of our deals, we're out. And for that reason, we're out. And I'm supposed to be concerned about Sorsby breaking some rules? What? Free Sorsby, man. This is ridiculous. Like, the NCAA is trying to invoke an ironclad rule in order to end a 22-year-old's career, while the SEC and the Big Ten are openly rejecting the authority of the body that wrote those rules. You cannot simultaneously have power brokers saying, hey, these rules matter, while simultaneously saying they don't. We saw the bulk of what Kessler's arguing based on the affidavit, and if I were Kessler, I'd show up and be like, the Big Ten and the SEC don't want these rules. They're moving away from them. Like, what are we doing here? This feels like there's this huge parking lot, and it's burning down to the ground, and the NCAA enforcement staff is out here writing parking tickets to Brendan Sorsby. Meanwhile, the parking lot's on fire.
Right.
What parking lot? What, I'm having to pay a ticket here for a fine for a parking lot that is being burned to the ground right now?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It's very hypocritical. And if this was a Big Ten or an SEC player, would this look different?
You're damn right it would.
Yeah. I mean, a lot different. But the comments that Sorsby had, like, and why I see this as not a great start from a PR standpoint. Like, the legal strategy requires sympathy from the public, okay? He was addicted. He's in a mental health facility, the redemption arc, like that's their play. And the I lost most of my bets line completely like undercuts that emotional narrative that they're trying to build. So it sounds like a man that is not battling a disorder versus a fan venting about his team, right, when you read those comments. So he also stated in the affidavit, I never used any non-public information that I knew about the team in deciding what bets to place. My bets were purely intended to make me feel more connected to the game and to my teammates. Just that I don't know that the defensive, this is why I did it, angle is the best play. What do you think?
I just, again, go back, like, I think this is all ridiculous. This is a, like, I understand that Sorsby has done something that is very viewed very negatively. But, like, what is cheating or what is breaking rules in a world in which that's, like, the norm? I don't really understand how to square the eligibility of a Brendan Sorsby with the eligibility of a player at Texas that is getting paid well above the $21 million threshold, and their deal has been rejected by the same governing body that they agreed to govern this. I don't know how to differentiate between those two eligibilities here. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to. For me, the bigger story is the CSC piece and how we're even talking about Sorsby's eligibility.
Well, in the SEC and the Big Ten, you know, they were part of the power conferences and the committees and everybody else that supported the CSC and built the CSC and tossed millions of dollars into the CSC. They built the rules that they don't want to abide by now. With Texas Tech, like Texas Tech has been very adamant. Texas Tech was one of the schools that voted to rescind the new, more permissive gambling legislation that would have allowed athletes to wager on professional sports. So they were among the Division I schools that were pushing to withdraw the rule. So, like, they have been against this rule, if you want to call it that, from day one. They're not just changing their mind because it's their star quarterback that got busted by this whole thing. Whereas, like, that's the whole hypocritical thing with the SEC and the Big Ten. You made the rules, now you don't want to follow them. Texas Tech said, we don't like this rule. We had a player that broke it. Here's why we didn't like it to begin with. Here's why we don't like it now.
Right, and look, the NCAA's gambling rules were in place far before gambling became legalized across the country. And not only that, but the NCAA is benefiting from legalized gambling. They are profiting from it. So that's at the core of Kessler's argument on hypocrisy. But again, like, the NCAA doesn't have any teeth. The NCAA continues to pop its head up and be like, hey, remember us? We still matter. And while at the same time, it's like, no, you don't, because I keep reading articles about how little you matter and how little your enforcement arm actually does. If there's an agency that establishes rules, but nobody abides by those rules, then that agency doesn't have any power. The power of any arm or agency in this case is in the members to abide by the rules. So I reject the rules entirely. That's where I am on Sorsby. Let the dude play. You know, he suggested in this affidavit a 2-game suspension. No. How about no game suspension?
Yeah.
Like, again, if Nebraska's going to say, hey, these deals were denied by the CSC, but we're going to play these guys anyways, then what are we doing here?
Right.
Like, rules are rules, right? Oh, no, but this is gambling. It's way different. Really? How?
Yeah, if those deals were rejected and those players, like, they should either, number one, not be able to play, or number two, if they do play, they're going to get that money one way or another.
And if the integrity of the games were compromised, that's illegal.
Yeah. That's a whole different deal. That's the FBI getting involved.
Like, he's being investigated right now by all of these different commissions, these gambling commissions across multiple states. If there are things that they're flagging here, then he's subject to criminal charges.
Right.
That's totally different than what we're talking about here. It's a whole different ball of wax.
And there's a lot to thumb through because he was using multiple platforms. We learned that in the affidavit. Hard Rock Bet, BetMGM, DraftKings, Prize Picks, Bet365. Like, there's no question now that he was in it, and he was in it at a very deep level. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about, did you see the judge that's going to oversee this thing in Lubbock County?
God bless him.
I saw this on my...
He's got some Raider power to him, that's for sure.
Boy, does he ever. The picture that's out there is him with the mascot, guns up. Like, I LOL'd. I laughed out loud when I saw this across my feed last night. I'm like, this is the cat that's going to be overseeing this whole thing. They filed for an injunction yesterday in Lubbock County. And apparently originally, like, it was in line to be like a Baylor grad and somebody else that didn't have any Texas Tech ties. And he said, no, guys, I think I got this. I think I can handle this one.
Well, and again, I think this just exposes the double standard. You know, there was an article written that at some point I want to reference by The Athletic about Texas Tech softball and how they become villains in the sport. And it's like, oh, no. So I see what's happened here. It's okay when you spend the money. It's okay when Texas spends the money. It's okay when Ohio State spends the money. But when it's Texas Tech, when it's somebody else, now all these people have a problem with it. Now they're villains. Now we must stop Brennan Sorsby. Don't look over here at what we're doing. Look over there at what he's doing and how bad that is, and let's punish him because there's a chance that they could beat us in a game, and we don't want him to be playing in a game against us. Like, I guarantee you, if he plays this year and they win a playoff game against an SEC team, the cries from the SEC about the impropriety will be insane. Meanwhile, SEC teams are paying well above and beyond the cap and are rejecting the CSC that's saying that those are illegal. Rules are rules, right? Oh, no. Not so much.
Texas Tech didn't even have a top 10 roster last year. A big jump from the year before, yeah, sure. But even this year, their projected roster is barely cracking the top 10. And they are vilified. And I'm talking about football, not just softball, but softball too. Like any sport. Anybody that isn't a traditional blue blood, this is how we've been doing it for a very long time, that enters the conversation, whether they're from the Big 12 or the ACC or the American. It doesn't matter. They're going to be vilified by those other conferences. And that would fire me up as a Texas Tech fan. That would make me very much us against them when it comes to Texas Tech specifically and the SEC and the Big Ten. Like, I've seen some message board geniuses with Texas Tech fans saying that, you know, they were fired up about the schedule. Having to play TCU on a Thursday, a Thanksgiving game. Having to play Houston early on in the season on a Friday. Like, threatening to leave the Big 12. Maybe we're better off joining these guys. Like, no way, dude. Like, you see what they've made you out to be? Like, push back.
All right, the latest on Sorsby with Pete Nakos from On 3. That's next. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio.
Robertson spins one. 4th down. Got it! Senior to senior. Robertson spins one. 4th down. Got it! Rush up the middle. Robertson spins one. 4th down. Got it! From the mesh point, he pulls, he shoots. Box for a touchdown. Josh Cameron. Bowl eligibility on the line, and they go to Josh Cameron. As you said, to start and to cap. Class was in the ESPN 300. Robertson, and so that is caught by Cameron. Flag down. You hear Cameron barking and one. I mean, Josh Cameron on the outside, one-on-one. I mean, you got guys straight all the way on. You mentioned it. Does he have full possession of that football? Now he has possession immediately, but watch the ball move here. He's already got being at 70%. He's going to get the catch. I mean, Josh Cameron on the outside, one-on-one. I mean, you got guys straight all the way on. You mentioned it. Play fake. One-on-one coverage. Jump ball. Flag is out. Hits hauled in. Josh Cameron.
This is what we talked about earlier in impact players. He's our guy that they throw the fade to. You see it right here?
This is Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Get the latest on Brennan Sorsby from Pete Nakos on 3. Pete, how are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing very well, thank you. All right, so Texas Tech releases a press release saying that they've made Brennan Sorsby ineligible. This coincides with the injunction filed. Can you just kind of fill in the gaps there? What's the latest on Sorsby?
Yeah, so Tech is also filing for reinstatement for Brendan Sorsby. So that's that in the Texas Tech world, that's what Texas Tech is doing. And then Sorsby has obviously filed a lawsuit against the NCAA, pushing to expedite the timeline for some sort of clarity on what his eligibility will be for the 2026 season. The lawsuit lays out a handful of things. His betting history. It also lays out how him and his lawyers believe that, the NCAA, I'll read you, the NCAA has weaponized his condition to shore up a facade of competitive integrity while simultaneously profiting from the very gambling ecosystem it polices. So it's a heck of a lawsuit. It's all going to take place in West Texas and Lubbock County District Court. I think that is important to note. And yeah, we'll see how it all plays out, but there's definitely a timeline on all of this. Today's May 19th. He needs to file paperwork for the NFL supplemental draft no later than June 22nd. He's asked for a court date no later than June 15th. So this is all going to come to a head rather quickly.
So how is this similar or different to the case that is happening with Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss?
Yeah, they're two very different things in the sense that Trinidad Chambliss that centered around his injury history and things like that. Obviously, Brendan Sorsby is making a case that the NCAA is wronging him by not letting him play this season, despite his gambling history. So they're two very different things. I would tell you that where there might be somewhat of a crossover is just the amount of NCAA lawsuits we've seen from Chambliss to, Joey Aguilar to Charles Bediako. And I think in the case of Chambliss specifically, the attorneys argued that the NCAA unevenly applied its own medical hardship waivers. And now Sorsby's attorneys are arguing that the NCAA has dragged out the process and are now applying their gambling policies unevenly. So I would say that's the only crossover.
I'm curious, Pete. One of the more underappreciated stories playing out right now is the battle with the CSC and the Big Ten and the SEC. What do you know about that?
In terms of just the fact that there's a battle, or just that the amount of money tied up that are set to be paid out to SEC and athletes.
And like, are we just hearing threats here, or is there legit teeth to like the idea that the Big Ten and the SEC can break away because they don't agree with the CSC that they helped establish themselves?
Listen, those threats are not lobbied for no reason. At the same time, similar threats have been thrown out there since 2021 when NIL started. So what I would tell you, though, is that there's a lot of pent-up frustration with the CSC. Obviously, all the power conferences signed off on the CSC as part of the House settlement agreement. At the same time, college football is 3 months away, and there's a lot of money tied up that needs to be paid out to certain athletes because of the clearinghouse. And I just think that I think what we're heading towards is something that everyone has kind of seen from the jump. It's just that I don't think you can regulate spending on college football when it comes to and I mean, let's just be honest here and shoot it straight, right? Athletes being paid on college football rosters are being paid to play. Like, I know every athletic director has their own stance on that, but in my opinion, I think that's reality, right? You're paying for an athlete to play for your college football team right now. And when you try to cap the spending on it, there's teams who are going to obviously spend over the cap. And I mean, I've written stories about this in recent weeks, but, I had a school tell me that in the basketball world that if you're spending over $50 million on your roster, there's no way that you're not going to spend around the clearinghouse.
Do you think that this could be used by Kessler as an argument as well, that basically like other conferences are rejecting the NCAA and their rules?
No, I think that this Brendan Sorsby situation is very specific when it comes to the NCAA's gambling policy and how they believe that the NCAA rules have been unevenly, distributed in different situations, and they believe that they also lay out in the lawsuit how they think for Brendan Sorsby's mental health, it'd be best for him to play college football this fall.
Pete, you said something earlier about Sorsby's team arguing that the NCAA, when it comes to the gambling stuff, you said something about uneven penalties. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I'm not to bore everyone here, but there's multiple situations throughout the years where there's like an Indiana volleyball assistant who bet on sports at Indiana, and they only had to face a 10-game suspension and get a 2-year show cause. So like Brendan Sorsby went to the NCAA, and it lays this out in the lawsuit that he went to the NCAA with a offer for a 2-game suspension and to continue seeking gambling addiction rehab once he returns to Texas Tech and do whatever else the NCAA sees fit, and the NCAA rejected that. So, and I think this, needs to be said too, is that this is just a huge moment for the NCAA in terms of upholding its own membership rules. And obviously, I'm as non-biased as possible here, but it also comes down to the integrity of the game and how the NCAA wants to see that play out.
Also curious, you tweeted the President's Roundtable on Fixing College Sports sent a memo to the United States Senators Cruz and Cantwell today voicing strong support for completing bipartisan college sports reform. That you actually put on X the actual letter itself. Now, what does this have to do with the SCORE Act, which will not be voted on today as was originally intended?
Yeah, the SCORE Act is not going to be voted on. It's been taken out of the House for this week. It is May 19th, and the only kind of congressional legislation I see actually taking shape that's actually going to be meaningful at this point is probably going to be this bicameral, bipartisan legislation from Senators Cruz and Cantwell. They're in the final steps of negotiation on that. So it could come as early as this week. It could come next week. all that said, while there's so much positive momentum behind that, summer recess is in August and midterms are in November. So there's probably about like a 6 to 8 week window of seeing this actually take shape. And if it doesn't, it happened before August, the odds of it happening seem a little slim.
Okay, so that's 6 to 8 week window on that. What's the latest on the eligibility, the age-based eligibility that would give athletes 5 years to compete in D1 starting immediately with the grandfathering of some athletes? It's very confusing. What's the latest there?
The D1 cabinet and the D1 board both meet this week, and they're going to talk about the age-based eligibility. Nothing is getting voted on this week. It's just a lot of continued conversations about what it would look like implementing that, obviously, because it just opens up a can of worms, if you will, of just how do you put this in place and what's it look like. If people need a reminder of what it looks like, the age-based eligibility would give athletes 5 years to compete in D1, and that would either start right after their high school graduation or after their 19th birthday, whichever comes first. So it does give them those 5 years. The NCAA is technically not calling it 5 for 5. They're calling it age-based eligibility.
Pete, do you think that's going to happen eventually?
Yeah, I'll be surprised if it doesn't take shape.
Okay.
But there's just a process that needs to go through, and the part of the process they're at right now, nothing's being voted on this week.
Great stuff as always, Pete Nakos on 3. Pete, you're the best. Appreciate your time as always, man. Thank you.
You bet. Have a great Tuesday.
You too, bud. Thanks. Pete Nakos, always kind with his time joining us to break down his perspective on all of these topics, many of which he's reporting on. And, it's interesting, I think. I also think at times it's like, what? It's this classic, it's not Monday Night Football. It's, are you ready for some court cases?
Right.
It's a jurisprudence party.
The Indiana volleyball case that I didn't know a lot about that he brought up is pretty fascinating to me, especially when you look at, this was a 5-month period that this assistant coach the bets that this coach made totaled $327,000. 27 of those bets on Indiana football and men's basketball. Now, the penalty was a 10-game suspension, 2-year show cause, but his career remained ultimately intact. With Brendan Sorsby, this is the end of his career, right? This is permanent. He's only got 1 year left. The supplemental draft, he has to declare in the next month. So that's just another example, but also talking with Pete there, big takeaway I had is this could get resolved fairly quickly. Within the next month, we should have an answer on what this season is going to look like.
Yeah, well said. And look, I think it's pretty obvious what's going to happen. The NCAA is going to rule him permanently ineligible. They will try and get him reinstated, and I think ultimately they'll win in court. Kessler hasn't lost very much in court to the NCAA, and I think at the same time when you have, again, maybe it's not apples to apples, but if you've got an entire group rejecting the rules and of this entity, then how are other rules enforceable? Just doesn't make any sense to me. And I am firmly in the camp of if Sorsby is doing this, if Sorsby's at LSU, this is not a story.
Totally. And Trinidad Chambliss, he's eligible for this season. He won. What happened with Bediako? That was the other one that he brought up.
Pretty sure he's eligible.
So, every single one of these cases that have taken place.
L for the NCAA.
Win for the player, the program, the sport.
Yeah, what's the DJ Khaled song?
All I do is win. It's all we do is win.
Meanwhile, the Beck song, I'm a loser, baby, so why don't you love me, is the NCAA.
Yeah.
It's Big 12 today, Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. The road to Arlington, we're taking a deep dive into Colorado football expectations, the biggest question marks, the biggest gamble, the trap games, the biggest game, the 3-game stretch that defines the season. We are getting deep into Colorado football on our Road to Arlington series, which continues next. With James Wesley, I'm Ari Tepke. This is Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio.
Success with Craig. Deep drop for Vita. Taking a shot to the end zone. Chris Hudson. He's got it for 6.
And away we go. Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. The road to Arlington, paved through Colorado. Boulder, Colorado. Along with James Westling, I'm Ari Temkin. This is our Road to Arlington series where we do a deep dive on each and every Big 12 school. And today we're talking Colorado. Modelo fan rule number 31. Off-season doesn't mean off. It means research. Cheers to you, Modelo full-time fans, and all the research you've been doing throughout this offseason, along with us, as we've done the top 5 newcomers at every position, the top 5 players at every position. We did post-spring recaps, and now we hit the road to Arlington, where we do a deep dive on all the things we've learned about all of these teams so far. And we're working our way up from 16 to 1 from last year's standings. Oklahoma State was yesterday. Colorado is today. And we start talking Colorado on the road to Arlington with the biggest question mark, James.
Yeah, the road to Arlington, if it goes through Boulder, the roads are windy. Hope you have chains on the tires. For Colorado, there's been a theme the last 3 seasons. 3-9, a collapse last year, and a lot of it, to me, centers around their lack of ability to run the football on offense. But more importantly, my number one question mark is their rushing defense. Okay, they were second to last nationally this past season, allowing 223 rushing yards per game. Dead last in the Big 12. Only Eastern Michigan was worse nationally. Now, their passing defense also wasn't great. They returned 5 guys that are expected to start on offense from last year's team. Defensively, their entire starting 11 guys are all newcomers. So it's a massive overhaul when you talk about coaches and personnel. So I lean rushing defense because of just how bad they were last season. It has to be better.
Yeah, that's a good one. For me, is the 2 question marks that I have. Is Julian Lewis actually ready? And the new defensive coordinator installing a new system in a very short period of time. So let's start with Julian Lewis. You know, look, this go-go Brennan Marion offense is tailor-made for Lewis. It's an offense that's tempo-driven, built around the quarterback, making fast decisions, and Lewis is built for that. In fact, this is very much mirrors what he did in high school. So I think that transition should be good, but we'll see. Now, look, when you look at what he did last year as a starter, his first start against West Virginia was very good. But his rushing line from that same game, 12 for minus 39. Now, obviously a huge part of that was the sacks that he took in that game. So, do they have the offensive line built around him? I think they're going to have really good weapons at wide receiver, but the question of their running game, there's question marks here that play into, is Julian Lewis going to be ready for a situation in which he's got to lift up the rest of his teammates in order to be better? He's got to be better than a lot of the other guys, and that's how he was recruited. That's why he was a 5-star. That's why he was highly sought after. So is Julian Lewis ready for the big time? The other one is Chris Marv takes over as the new defensive coordinator only 5 days before the start of spring ball. Remember, Robert Livingston leaves, goes to the Denver Broncos. So when you think about just timeline for the schematic installation, he didn't have very much time in order to do it with spring football coming fast and furiously. So my other question mark beyond Julian Lewis is the short amount of time that Chris Marv had to install the new defense.
Well, and remember, Robert Livingston completely turned that defense around his second year as coordinator and part of that 9-win season. And then last year, major regression on the defensive side of the ball. My biggest gamble kind of circles back to your discussion about Julian Lewis. It's just the go-go offense. New offensive coordinator. I really like what Brennan Marion has done and his track record, but he's still really unproven. He's only actually been an offensive coordinator 1 season, and that was at Sacramento State. Now, with that said, you look at his track record, very impressive at the wide receiver position, which I think will be a strength for this football team.
Agreed.
He tutored Jordan Addison at Pitt, Xavier Worthy, and Jordan Whittington at Texas. Ricky White III at UNLV, he turned into an All-American under his watch. So the system, to your point, it looks really well-suited for Julian Lewis. Quick trigger, quick release, all those things Lewis has. But it's still a gamble because you don't see that offense at the power conference level. Okay, it was really good at Sacramento State. It was really good at UNLV. But there aren't any power conference teams running this go-go offense. This is really like the first test of can this work at this level. So it is a gamble, and the offensive line is going to be critical. The RPO game and the cerebral aspect of what Julian Lewis has to bring to the table this year, I do think on paper it's a splash higher, but it's still a big risk.
Yeah, that's also my biggest gamble as well, the Brendan Marion go-go offense, because of everything you just laid out. Like, it's still just Marion running it. It hasn't picked up any steam at the Power 5 level or Power 4 level. And so it's unproven at this level, and then you combine that with an unproven quarterback, an offensive line that's a major question mark and lost its best piece, regardless of what they brought in, and a questionable running game. And look, the go-go offense, the success of it is predicated on the quarterback, the offensive line, and the running game, more so than the wide receiver position. So for me, and look, Brendan Marion did bring 5 players from Sac State with him, including their starting running back and Damian Henderson, but still a huge gamble. Will it work at this level in an all-important year for Deion Sanders? Trap game.
There's a lot to choose from with trap games. I actually go early in the season. September 19th, Colorado plays at Northwestern. On paper, that looks very manageable. But Northwestern's coach has improved his win total each year in his first 3 seasons. They went 7-6 last year. It's in Chicago. Colorado opens with 3 straight Power 4 road games. They play at Georgia Tech week 1, then they play at Northwestern week 3, and then they open up Big 12 play on the road. So by the time they get to that game, they'll already have a road game under their belt. So I think that's why people are just overlooking it. It's a brand new stadium playing against a Big Ten team who pretty much has nothing to lose if you're Northwestern. They open their brand new Ryan Field like they're going to have a rowdy crowd. They brought in Chip Kelly as their offensive coordinator. So if Colorado comes out with a loss at Georgia Tech, which is possible, Georgia Tech beat them last year in Boulder, they've got Weber State between, but you don't want to be 1-2 going into Big 12 play if you're going to make a bowl game. So that's the biggest trap game for me early on, is at Northwestern.
I agree. Northwestern is the trap game here. Georgia Tech stands out. It's the first game of the year. You lost to them last year. Weber State is Weber State. And then, at Northwestern, and like you said, it's a brand new stadium. It's going to be a very jacked up crowd, juiced up crowd. This is a program that's won a decent amount of football games over the last decade, whether it's under Pat Fitzgerald or their new head coach. And then on top of that, nobody's really talking about Northwestern as a legitimate threat. But Northwestern's a program that wins with scheme. They win with pace manipulation and physicality up front, the exact formula that can expose a young quarterback learning a new tempo system. Evanston is a cold, hostile environment with a brand new stadium. Again, it should be nice in September in Evanston, but I digress. And then, of course, the following week is at Baylor to start Big 12 play. So that, to me, is the trap part of this. You finish off your non-conference against a team that on paper you should beat. You're going on the road with consecutive road games. It's definitely the trap game. All right, what's their biggest game?
So their schedule's absolutely brutal.
Yeah, it is.
3 of their first 4 games are on the road. Georgia Tech, Northwestern, and then that game that they open Big 12 play is at Baylor. Oh, and then after that, it's Texas Tech at home, and that's all before a bye. They don't have a bye the first 5 weeks of the college football season. But I went down the schedule, and I have their biggest game because I look at if this team is going to make a bowl, the game they have to get, and it's Halloween, October 31st, against Kansas State, because it's sandwiched between 2 road games at Oklahoma State and at Arizona State. Also, it's a statement game that's wrapped up inside a big-time rivalry. Like K-State and Colorado, they had some battles back in the 90s and the early 2000s, back in the old Big 8 and then the new Big 12. ESPN's Greg McElroy, who we've had on the show before at Media Days, he's donned K-State as his Big 12 dark horse. So, we're not the only ones that think K-State's going to be much improved, and you're going to have a veteran quarterback in Avery Johnson against Julian Lewis, who's going to be still searching for, I believe, that breakthrough moment. So I look at that home game against K-State as almost a must-win for Colorado to be a bowl-eligible team this year, and it's going to be a big game for both teams.
Yeah, when you think about biggest game, you've got to have a set criteria, and for me, the biggest game is the October 17th game against Utah at home. Utah and Colorado have become a pretty good rivalry. Obviously, from a state perspective, those are bordering states that have amazing mountains that you can go skiing on, so there's got to be a rivalry based on that. The Texas Tech game kind of ends this brutal stretch to start the year. They hit the bye, and then they have Utah coming out of the bye, which begins a second stretch of difficult football. But I think at home against a Utah team that's, many consider to be towards the top of the conference. If you think you're a 6-7 win team in Colorado, that's a game you've got to win. So for me, it's the Utah game simply because it's a team you're familiar with. You've been in the Pac-12 with them. There's a rivalry there. You have there's a regional component to it, and you're coming out of a bye, which makes it even more important. You can't lose coming out of a bye, especially because now you don't have double byes, so there's just the one bye, and that bye comes at the right time because you said it. I mean, you start off with at Georgia Tech, at Northwestern, Weber State at home in the middle, at Baylor, Texas Tech to start the year. That's a brutal stretch. You come out of the bye week with this game. That's why I think it's their biggest game. All right, what's their 3-game swing stretch, James?
Man, so normally for the biggest 3-game stretch, you go late in the year, right? But for Colorado, with what they went through last year, I think it's early in the season. I look at September 19th to October 3rd, 3 consecutive weeks where they play at Northwestern, at Baylor, and at home against Texas Tech.
Yeah.
You have to get 1, maybe 2 of those. And this is assuming they beat Weber State in week 2. At Georgia Tech to open the year. Like, in terms of games they're probably going to be underdogs in, they would start the season potentially 1-4. They're going to be an underdog in all 3 of those games, at Northwestern, at Baylor, and Texas Tech at home. And that's going into the bye before that Utah game that you highlighted as their biggest game. So are they limping in to that Utah game, or are they playing above expectations with momentum going into that Utah game after the bye? So for me, the 3-game stretch comes early that could define their season.
Yeah, this one was tough because I looked at that 3-game stretch you just discussed. But ultimately, with a brand new offense and a brand new defense under 2 new coordinators, a roster that's been turned over, I went deeper into the season. I went to that stretch, November 7th, 14th, and then 21st on the road. Arizona State on November 7th, home against Houston on November 14th, and then they hit the road for Cincinnati November 21st. So 3 consecutive weeks, 2 road games, 2 of teams that are expected to be towards the top of the Big 12, and then a team that you hit on the road that you should be better than, but you got to go prove it on the road late in the season. To me, if this team is going to be a bowl team, they've got to hit in that stretch. I think they've got to win 2 of those 3, which would be tough because Arizona State, again, should be competing towards the top of the Big 12. Houston will definitely be competing towards the top of the Big 12, and that's a home game. And then you got to beat Cincinnati to prove that you're better than them. So, and by the way, Colorado has had some late season collapses. So I think the final 3 games of the regular season are exactly where to put this swing stretch. All 3 are winnable, but all 3 are also losable. If you go 3-0 and Colorado's potentially 7-5 or better, and has momentum heading into a bowl game, you go 1-2 or 0-3, and suddenly you're back to where you were, which is what kind of program do you want to be and do you want to have, and are you ever going to have any level of sustained success?
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 seasons, they've had late season collapses, if you will. And
I will.
Colorado is one of those teams that, like Bill Connolly identified in terms of turnover, bad luck, and injury, bad luck, and close games, bad luck, should see a major turnaround this year in all those categories. Biggest question for me is, can they get there? Like, if they're 4-6 going into the last 2 weeks of the regular season, they can be a bowl team at Cincinnati and UCF to wrap up the year. When you look at their schedule, like, collectively, those might be their 2 easiest games. Like, there is not a break anywhere on this schedule, and that's not a knock on Cincinnati and UCF. That just is what it is based off of how these teams finished last year.
Well said.
This might be the toughest schedule in the league.
Yeah, you're right. And that's why it was tough to figure out the biggest game, trap game, and the 3-game stretch, because there are a lot of opportunities on that schedule. All right, we continue the road to Arlington, Colorado Buffaloes edition with the player they can't lose, their hidden strength, and the number, the most important number, plus what's the pressure point, what success looks like, and why they will or why they won't win the Big 12 in 2026, 2027. The road to Arlington, Colorado continues next with James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, and we are covering the road to Arlington with the Colorado Buffaloes with James Wesley. I'm Ari Temkin. Remember, off-season doesn't mean off. It means research. That would be Modelo fan rule number 31. Cheers to all you Modelo full-time fans for listening to this show each and every day, especially on the road to Arlington. All right, so we've just made our way through the biggest question marks, the biggest gamble, the trap game, the biggest game, and the three-game swing stretch. Now we hit the one player they can't lose, James.
Yeah, so this is where I go outside the quarterback position. The most important position on the field is not my guy. My guy is defensive tackle Santana Hopper. There's going to be 11 new starters on this defense. Colorado, only Eastern Michigan last year, was worst at stopping the run nationally. So they bring in a grad transfer from Tulane. The number 2 overall defensive lineman in this year's transfer portal class, their rankings per On3, Colorado's highest-rated portal recruit on the roster this year. So at App State, he was a freshman All-American. He was all Sun Belt. Then he goes to Tulane. Last year, he had a career-high 10 tackles for loss. He had 4.5 sacks. He was first-team All-League. He was also a Pro Football Focus third-team All-American. He had 39 quarterback pressures last year. That was second among all defensive tackles nationally. He's been a guy everywhere he's been over the entire course of his career. And he's the one guy they can't lose because of the rushing defense and the lack of sacks. Colorado only had 13 sacks last year in 13 games. That ranked 129th in the country out of 135 teams. So he's their big quarterback of that defense, at least that defensive line. He's their anchor. It's Santana Hopper for me.
Well, I love that, and we were thinking along the same lines. But for me, the one player they can't lose would be Danny Scudero, the wide receiver who played for Brennan Marion at Sac State a couple of years ago before he led the country in receiving last year at San Jose State. And for me, the case is even stronger here for Scudero because he's the only player on this roster with proven production at volume in Marion's system. If Scudero gets hurt, Colorado doesn't just lose their top receiver; they lose the player the entire offensive scheme is built to feature. You know, we talk about this go-go offense and how much it relies on the quarterback making swift decisions, the offensive line being able to play with pace, the running game, but I think their slot receiver is arguably the most important position within the go-go offense. So without Scudero, it doesn't work. Wide receivers coach Jason Phillips, quote, Danny is still going to get the ball a lot. He's brought that work ethic here. He's been an example guy. So the fact that your receivers coach is saying before the season starts that Scudero is going to get the ball a lot speaks to the importance that he has within this offensive ecosystem and offensive scheme. The one player they cannot lose, the irreplaceable guy, is Danny Scudero. And while Julian Lewis still certainly has, is a part of this, I mean, their backup is Isaac Wilson, the former BYU quarterback and Zach Wilson's brother, rather former Utah quarterback and Zach Wilson's brother. So, and he's got a similar skill set. He can run a little bit. So, look, they can't lose Lewis, but I think they could survive that more than they could Santana Hopper, great call, or Danny Scudero.
Yeah, totally. And Wilson hasn't played competitively in about 2 years. But he has still been getting the practice reps. He's still been studying the game. Like, he's a guy that I wouldn't be surprised if he had to play because of Lewis going down for a week or two or whatever the case may be. Remember, half of the teams in this conference played a backup quarterback last year. Like, he's a good backup to have. Maybe one of the better backups in the league. So great note there. All right, hidden strength. Love your Danny Scudero because my hidden strength is that wide receiver room. This might be the deepest, most talented wide receiver room in the conference, which says a lot for a team that won 3 games last year. So one more note on Scudero. He led the nation in deep targets. He was targeted of 20-plus yards and posted a 99.9 receiving grade on those looks per Pro Football Focus. So he's a deep threat just as much as he is the short route underneath guy. Led the nation in receiving yards and yards per game. Ohio State's Jeremiah Smith was second. The wide receivers coach at Colorado said the first thing we had to address was we had to find more speed, and they did that in the portal with DeAndre Moore Jr., the transfer from Texas, has the big game resume, 77 catches, 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns at Texas. He had 114 yards and 9 catches and a touchdown in the SEC championship game against Georgia Also scored in the Peach Bowl, had a really good grade. And then, you could talk about the other transfers, sure. But I look at Joseph Williams, who was a transfer last year and is the one wide receiver who stuck around. Remember, he was the kid that got on campus, wanted a certain number, and Deion said, no, you've got to earn that. And he did. He led the nation in contested catches when he was at Tulsa as a true freshman 2 years ago. Didn't quite translate last year, but I expect him to be a big part of that receiver room that's super talented with a bunch of NFL guys.
Yeah, what's interesting is initially I thought receiver room is well in the hidden strength, but I don't know how hidden it is because of Scudero. For me, it's the linebacking core. And you touched on this earlier, but as bad as they were running the football, they were even worse stopping the run, and a big part of that is because of the linebacking core. It was their single most damaging 2025 weakness. And I think they've done a great job to make it into a strength. I mean, it starts to me with Chris Marv, their new defensive coordinator that has spent his entire career as a linebackers coach. And as a guy, from a resume standpoint, he was a three-time second-team All-SEC linebacker at Vandy, coached at Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Florida State, and Virginia Tech, and has built around linebacker development and defensive front architecture. Then you look at what they did in the portal linebacker. Leona Lafau from Texas, Gideon Lamprin from Bowling Green, who's one of the most productive linebackers in college football last year, and Tyler Martinez, all added via the portal. Plus, they had a big-time recruit in Carson Crawford. Lamprin was the only player in the nation who finished the regular season with over 100 tackles and 15 tackles for loss. 119 tackles, 17.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles in 12 games at Bowling Green. So they're not just developmental pieces. These are proven producers arriving in a system under Chris Marv, who's spent his entire career playing and coaching as a linebacker specialist. So for me, if we're picking not just wide receivers as a hidden strength, to me linebackers goes from being a huge weakness. They allowed 222.5 rushing yards per game last year. 222.5 yards rushing per game last year, 135th in the nation. So that wasn't just a defensive line failure. That was a second-level defensive failure, and I think they fixed it this year by elevating Chris Marv and what they did in the portal with Lafau, Lamprin, and Martinez.
Love it.
What's the number?
All right, the number for me is 38.4%.
We have the exact same number, but different.
Same number, but different.
Correct. You'll find out in a second.
Okay, well, that is Colorado's third down conversion rate last season. Colorado's had an up and down, rocky road when it comes to third downs under Coach Prime. During their 9-win season, they ranked in the mid-60s nationally. Still weren't great. But last year, they were 116th in the country. They have no third down identity, and I think some of it's because they've struggled to rush the football the last 2 seasons, but this go-go offense is specifically engineered to put your team in very manageable third downs before they happen. 6 yards on first, couple more on second. All of a sudden, you've got third and short. You've got 2 running backs in the backfield. You've got a bunch of triple option concepts. You've got a bunch of RPOs, run-pass options. So for Colorado, and a lot of this will center around the decision-making, I think, of the quarterback, the offensive line, and can they get those short yards in clutch situations like third down. In Marion's first year at UNLV was number 1 in the Mountain West in third downs. UNLV, the second year, finished 6th in the nation. So his system is built around converting on third down. Can they do it? That's the number. It was bad last year.
My number is 74, and according to team rankings, Colorado is 74th in third down conversion percentage, 38.4. So again, same number but different number. 74 is my number, and this is an offense built upon converting. It's designed to attack early downs, create manageable third down situations. If they can't run the football, which they've not been able to effectively do, they're going to be at that 38 to 37, 36%. They need to be somewhere up in the 40% range. If they're anywhere between 32 and 38%, which they were last year, this is another 3-win season. If they're at 40+% on third downs, that means Damian Henderson has come over from Sac State and has run the ball well. That means they're able to block well. It means some of the question marks we've talked about throughout this segment have come in the positive. So the number for me is that third down percentage as well. What does success look like this year for Colorado?
Man, and it makes sense because we've started at the bottom of the league from last year. To me, it's make a bowl game. And that success, I think, benchmark looks very different than it did after they won 9 games 2 years ago. But a bounce-back year for me would be 6-6 or 7-5 in the regular season because of this brutal schedule. Like, what were they thinking, playing 2 power conference opponents on the road, which totally removes that Folsom Field home field advantage that Deion's done a phenomenal job of building in Boulder. Their home games are tough, right? After Weber State, their first 2 home games are against teams that are expected to be ranked in the preseason. Definitely Texas Tech. Utah's probably going to be ranked in the preseason. And then Kansas State was the biggest game for me on their schedule. And Houston, who's going to be a top 4 team in the Big 12. And UCF. Like, even their home games are tough. So to make a bowl game, I think that quiets a lot of the noise surrounding the Colorado program and all the roster turnover. That's the benchmark for me. Success looks like making a bowl.
Yeah, I have them actually 7 wins is success for me. So it's a little bit more than a bowl game. I think we looked at Oklahoma State yesterday and said 6-7 wins would be good. 7 wins for me would be success for Colorado in 2026. Colorado was 9-4 in 24, and it felt like there was a huge breakthrough because it came on the heels of back-to-back sub-500 seasons and was driven by generational talent and Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. But in the collapse in 25 to 3-9 revealed how dependent the program was on those 2 players and how thin the roster depth specifically was. So success in 2026 to me cannot be another star-dependent, unsustainable performance spike, right? Like, there's got to be institutional growth here that Deion is showing, because at this point, all that it looks like is Deion's success at Colorado is tied specifically to Shedeur, Shiloh, and Travis Hunter. So 7 wins this year, not necessarily built upon the strength of star power, but on institutional growth, institutional progress. That is what Colorado needs and is what Colorado is looking for, which is why my pressure point, which I'm not sure if we're going to do or not, I had it, but is Deion Sanders. In his time at Boulder, Sanders has not been able to be consistently successful. Just 1 winning season over 3 years, 9-4. And that, again, was with Shedeur and Travis Hunter. And many people wondered if they could be successful in 2025 without them. Now, look, it was the fact that Deion, had the health issues that he had, having cancer, having to have his bladder removed, right? Like, these are all legitimate reasons for why Colorado had 3 wins last year. So for me, the pressure is on him this year. He's been with the team throughout the offseason. He has a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. Kenny finally figured the running game out. Like, he's being paid like a coach that needs to consistently win at a high level. Now, he's delivering on his high salary on the headlines. But now he's going to deliver on the substance, and that's why the pressure point is Deion Sanders this season.
Yep, I had Coach Prime as my pressure point as well for all of the same reasons you outlined. There has been a recurring theme with him at Colorado. Roster turnover. Can't stop the run.
Can't run the football.
Offensive line on paper looks really good every year. They struggle when they get on the field together. And is that tied to the roster turnover? And the other parallel, and I meant to bring this up yesterday with Oklahoma State, the parallel that I see between the 2 programs is, keep in mind, and this is why I'm like a little hesitant to say Oklahoma State's going to win 7 or 8 games right away. I love Eric Morris. I love the hire. They've got an NFL quarterback. But Colorado and Coach Prime had an NFL quarterback in Shedeur Sanders, and he won 4 games his first year. In fact, he had 2 NFL stars with Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, and still his first year on the job, albeit not in the Big 12, but his first year, they won 4 games. Like, it's really hard to win right away, even if you are at the top with a lot of star power because of the depth. That's my biggest question for both of these teams. Entire 4-year tenure for Coach Prime in Oklahoma State in year 1.
Yeah. Here's what Deion Sanders said about building a program in Colorado.
I'm not going to say that. We made some tremendous mistakes at certain positions that derailed us a year ago. The first couple years we had stability at those positions that highlighted us. So we learned quite a bit of not just talent, but understanding mentality. And mentality is something that we targeted. It's something that we sat down and interviewed and made sure not only the young men, but the parents had that type of mentality, because the parents play a tremendous role in these young men's lives.
Which you love the approach, also love the accountability that Deion's taken for the roster movement. He continued on, what they were looking for specifically.
Yeah. How many? I should have the stat, and I apologize. How many of these guys were captains?
That I don't know.
I think we have. I think it's 15, 12.
It was double digits.
Excuse me.
It was double
It's
digits.
double digits of guys that were captains on their respective teams. That shows leadership. That shows that we chose some guys that are used to being in the front, and we have some young guys, especially some young corners, that came from winning programs. Like, they were winners. So they've experienced the understanding of winning, and we like that characteristic inside the locker room.
Found guys that are winners, captains, leaders.
Which says a lot about the locker room culture and the changes that they've made. I love that. Double-digit captains, that's a big deal. But you still have 11 new starters on defense. You still have what is now going to be an 18-year-old sophomore quarterback in the Big 12. Did Julian Lewis retain his red shirt? Did he play 4 or less games? I think he may be actually a redshirt freshman.
I think so.
I'll fact-check that. But either way, you've got a really young quarterback.
Yep.
I love the moves that they've made, but...
Okay, why would they win the Big 12?
Julian Lewis becomes a star, and they stay healthy. They were very much decimated by injuries this past season. One of the most injured, played the most different starting lineups in all of college football. And with that came a ton of turnovers, couldn't convert on third down. They just never looked organized. But for them to win the Big 12, Lewis has to break out and be a star.
Yeah, why they will? Because they have an offense that fits their quarterback in the same way they did not last year. If Caden Salter had been coming into this offense, I think it'd be a whole new ball of wax than what it was last year. And then the offensive skill talent. They're legitimately deep at wide receiver. They have a returning tight end in Zach Adkins that provides a really good safety valve for Julian Lewis. The running back room should be improved, especially to a guy in Henderson who's young but experienced within the Sac State go-go offense. So if they are to win the Big 12 this year, it'll be because of what they have on offense. Mm-hmm. If they don't win the Big 12, well, they won't win the Big 12.
On the flip side of that coin, Lewis struggles. They can't run the ball. The go-go offense doesn't click. This is very much a timing-based efficiency offense. If they can never get that down, and again, that tough schedule could play a role in that, they will struggle.
Yeah, and look, I mean, they've improved their defense seemingly by scheme and players, but we'll see if that comes to bear. And then, why they won't? Because they won 3 games last year. They have a more talented roster, but is it talented enough with a tough schedule in order to do it? Yeah. I'd lean more towards no. But let's find out from Brian Howell, who does a great job in covering Colorado football for for Buff Zone. That's next. With James Amari, the road to Arlington, Colorado Buffaloes. Brian Howell is coming up next. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Introduces himself to Scotty Fox in the backfield.
Horned Frogs show pressure. Kevin Jennings retreating. Bottles up and now goes down to the 5.
Double the red zone. And down he goes. How about those active ends and linebackers, huh? Caleb, the alarms are all over the place. This kid can play. Senior from Hayward, California. Option to the wide side. Connors, great play. Alarms are again. That young man has just been outstanding all day.
Nominee, here's Sama. And not much out there. They had the edge sealed. He's swung down by Elarms Orr.
Down behind the line of scrimmage.
Hard in the running back. Coming in from Westwood after 3 seasons, Elarms Orr. The tackle behind the line, the TFL.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. The road to Arlington, stopping in Boulder, Colorado. And let's talk about Colorado football with Brian Howell, Colorado Buffs beat writer for Buff Zone. Breaking down the road to Arlington for Colorado. Biggest question marks, biggest gamble, trap game, biggest game. 3 games that will define the season. Brian, how are you?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
Doing very well, thank you. Just to kind of summarize some of the things we've been talking about with Colorado and want to get your perspective on it. I think one of the position groups that certainly stands out is wide receiver. I also highlighted linebacker. I know Dion recently said, this is the best linebacking core he's ever coached at the college level, and so I think that's a potential hidden strength here. But they have a tough schedule and a lot of question marks with the new offensive and defensive coordinators.
Yeah, it's an interesting team because there's a lot of new pieces like there usually is for Colorado, and we don't know how they're going to look because so much of it is new. I mean, defensively, there's 5 guys that were on scholarship last year that are back from this team, so it's almost a completely new defense. And yeah, they might be a better team than last year, and the schedules may not show it, or the record may not show it because of the schedule, especially that first half. It's just that's a tough one. I mean, you don't see a lot of teams. I'm not sure if they're the only one that actually has 2 Power 4 road games in the non-conference. I mean, that's pretty unusual. So their schedule is tough. I mean, for a young team and a team that's trying to come together, you'd like to see a few more of the Weber States on the schedule. No offense to Weber State, but you'd like to see a few more of those than at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, at Georgia Tech, and then we both had at Northwestern as a major trap game potentially because it's like you've already played one power conference team on the road. We'll see how that goes. And then you've got another road game at Northwestern before Big 12 play. So what is the level of importance of those first 3 or even 4 games on the schedule?
Well, I think the Georgia Tech game is huge because it is the opener and it can set the tone. I think that there could be kind of like that 2023 season, Dion's first game ever when they went down to TCU and won that game. I think a big part of why they won that game is the element of surprise, is that TCU had no idea what to expect. I mean, Sonny Dykes even said that. He goes, we don't know what Colorado's going to do, what they look like in Colorado uniforms. And I think CU might be able to have that advantage going to Georgia Tech in that there's so much new on this team, and nobody's ever seen what these coordinators look like at Colorado. So CU might be able to surprise Georgia Tech with that. But then by the time you get to Northwestern, the surprise is gone, and you've got to start really kind of backing that up with what you have talent-wise. So yeah, that Northwestern game could be huge. But I really think if they win Georgia Tech and then they can come home and get Weber State and you're 2-0, I think that this team needs a lot of confidence like that.
Which do you think will work more year one, Brennan Marion or Marv?
That's a good question. I think Marion's track record is pretty good. I mean, his offenses are usually pretty explosive, and he's made it work. I mean, even his first year at UNLV, they were really good right out the gates. And so, but Chris Marv, I mean, he had success as well at Virginia Tech in his one stint as a coordinator. But I just think there's maybe more pieces that are proven right now on offense than there is on defense. And so I would guess I would say Marion and his offense.
All right, so we just went through a bunch of different categories for Colorado. I'm curious, what do you think is the hidden strength? Like we noted, the wide receiver room, there's been a lot of buzz about Scudero. We're excited about that room and Julian Lewis at quarterback. But what do you think could be the hidden strength that nobody's talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's 2 of them, but one of them I think is that receiving core. I think it's going to be better than people think. It's not going to get talked about a lot, but there's Scudero, but also DeAndre Moore comes in from Texas. He was a very productive receiver at Texas. Joseph Williams was the American Conference Freshman of the Year 2 years ago at Tulsa, and then had a good year at CU last year. So I think that receiving core, but also I would say the pass rush. I mean, they were near the bottom of the Big 12 last year. They only had 13 sacks all year after leading the conference 2 years ago. But they brought in a lot of guys that were highly productive at the FCS level. And I know that's different, but they're proven guys that have had production in games, and they really like that group. And so I think their pass rush, it's not going to be leading the Big 12, I don't think, like they did 2 years ago, but it should be much better than it was a year ago.
How much do you think it'll make a difference for Dion to have spent this offseason around the team as opposed to last year where he was dealing with bladder cancer?
Well, I'm going to go with what he says, and he thinks it's going to be a tremendous difference. And I believe that. I mean,
right.
when the head coach is not around, I think you can get away with more things as players, and I think more things slack off, right? Because it's sort of like you remember, when mom and dad leave for the weekend or whatever, things aren't going to get done around the house and things like that. So I think it's going to be a big difference. He was more. Not that he wasn't involved in recruiting before, but he was more involved in that this year. Like he was very involved in each one of these guys that are on this team. And last year, he talked about it that when he finally got back at the end of the summer, the start of camp, that was the first time he had met some of those guys. And if you remember, obviously this year there's no spring portal, but last year there was. And so there was a lot of guys that they recruited through the portal after the spring last year, and he never met them until he got there right before fall camp. And so that puts you behind right there. And so, that was probably a fourth of the team almost. And so he's met all these guys. He's been heavily recruited, involved in their recruiting. I think it's going to be a huge deal.
Well, and Coach Prime noted that, they've got like double-digit former captains or captains on this team. Has there been a major emphasis on the culture and how they vet these guys? And what does that say about just the roster construction?
Yeah, big time. I think that the way last year played out, I think that changed how they do a lot of their recruiting. Leadership was a massive problem last year. It was talked about from spring ball all the way through the Kansas State game, which was the last game of the year, that leadership was just lacking. And it was a big deal in their emphasis. Their emphasis in recruiting this year was really making sure that they vetted these guys maybe more so than they had in previous years. And there's a lot of guys that, like you said, were captains. And, like a Tyler Martinez, who was a captain and a star linebacker at New Mexico State. And he gets hurt early last year. But the guy that kind of stepped up and took that leadership role from people I talked to there was Nate Mitchell, their safety. Well, they got both those guys now. So those are two examples of guys that were leaders on their previous team, were captains. Toby Anene from North Dakota State is another one of those guys, an edge rusher. So there's a lot of those guys that were just there's more leadership. And from the few guys that are back from last year, there's a lot more emphasis on it because they saw what it would look like when there was no leadership.
Do you buy this year being a difference in terms of the run game, both offensively and defensively, Brian? That's been such a huge issue for Deion at Colorado, both stopping the run and running the football effectively.
Yeah, you almost have to buy it if this team's going to be any good. I do, especially on offense, I buy it because Brendan Marion's offenses have always run the ball. That's one thing that they've just always been able to do. And Colorado, as we know, has not been able to run the ball, but I think under Marion's scheme, they're going to be much better. I don't know if they're going to rush for 200 plus like he typically has, but if they're at 150, 175, that's dramatically better than what they've been. So I think they've got better backs. They've got a couple guys that were actually with Marion last year at Sac State, and so yeah, I do buy that. Defensively, we'll see. The linebacker core obviously is going to be a huge part of that. The defensive line, I think, is the biggest worry on this team right now, and there's not a lot of numbers, and they're kind of small. There's only a couple 300-pounders in that group, and you want more run stuffers in that group. And they were depleted last year with injuries, and there's not a lot of numbers right now. And so I know they're trying to add to that, but if they have any injuries whatsoever on that defensive line, they're really going to suffer, and that run defense is going to suffer.
What's the word on how Julian Lewis has looked in the spring?
Well, he's growing and developing, but I will say that I talked to somebody up there that is on the staff that said they thought Isaac Wilson had the better spring. So
Wow.
It is not a foregone conclusion that Julian Lewis is going to be the starting quarterback of this team. It's very much a competition going into fall. And, Julian, keep in mind, he's still a young player. He graduated a year early. If going on the traditional path, he would have just graduated high school this month. So
Wow.
he's still a young player. He turned 18 during the season last year. But he is developing. He's getting better, but he's a young player, and Isaac is certainly pushing him. And but don't be surprised if Isaac's that starter on day one. It wouldn't surprise me. Deion's not going to start Julian because he makes the bigger NIL paycheck. It's going to be whoever is that best guy, and if it's Isaac in the fall, it's going to be Isaac at Georgia Tech.
With the new athletic director, how much does that make Deion's status tenuous in terms of, like, if they don't win this year, get to a bowl game, what does this look like, especially with the new athletic director?
Yeah, it's hard to answer that because Fernando Lovo has only been an athletic director one other time, and it was New Mexico for 1 year. So there is no really history on what he does in those situations. He actually, when he got to New Mexico, 5 days after he got there, Bronco Mendenhall left and went to Utah State. So he has had to hire a football coach, but it wasn't him firing him. I do think there was a difference though in that if Rick George was still the AD. I wouldn't say that there's anything to worry about when you're Deion Sanders because, Rick was tied to that hire, but Fernando's not. The problem is that that there's a lot of money tied up in that. If this goes off the rails and it's a really bad year, Colorado's going to have to come up with $25 million to get rid of Deion Sanders, and I don't know if they have that money. I mean, they don't right now. I don't know where they're going to get it. And so, but with a new AD, you never know. I mean, who knows? He knows the pressure, and he knows the fact that Colorado's got that next round of realignment, which we probably all know is coming in their minds, and so there could be some pressure to move on if this year is another 3-9 or even worse.
Yeah, agreed. So what do you think? Do you think this is a 6-win team? You think this is a 3-win team?
Either one. I think it really could go any. I have no idea because there's so much new, but I do think the talent is there and the pieces are in place to where they can get to a bowl game. And, Brendan Marion's been successful. Chris Marvin, even though he got fired from Virginia Tech, was pretty good up there, their defensive coordinator, at least statistically. They allowed less than 25 points per game all 3 of those years there. If Colorado can do that defensively, keep opponents to 25 or less, and that offense scores 28 plus per game, then I think they can be in a bowl game. And that's something they haven't done. 2 out of 3 years is something they haven't done in almost 20 years, going to bowl games. So that would be huge for them.
Brian Howell, Colorado Buffs beat writer for Buff Zone, does a great job. Brian, thanks as always for your time, man. Be well.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Brian Howell joining us to break down the road to Arlington for Colorado. And yeah, I think we can all see a path to 3 wins. We can see a path to 6 or 7 wins. So we shall see. All right, more on this coming up in Valid or Void next. That's the road to Arlington, Colorado. We're focused on Iowa State tomorrow. Should be very, very interesting on our Road to Arlington series presented by West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Got it, yeah.
WVU.
That's what I thought. All right, Valid or Void is next. It's Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watch it on Big 12 Studios.
Robertson. That's picked off. Keith Abney with the pilfer.
West Virginia down 2 scores. They get a reprieve. Jacob Barrick fumbles. And able to get it back. So on back-to-back plays as Keith Abney jars this one loose.
For the 24. Blitz coming. Pennington steps up. Goes down. Keith Abney the second, the corner blitz for the Sun Devils.
So far, ASU has not surrendered a gain of more than 10 yards. Here's one that could happen in a hurry. Knocked out. A fumble recovered by Miles Rouser. Timeouts left for Rich Rodriguez. This is a must-have. 4th down and 4. And ASU takes it away. Keith Abney calls game. He needs 4. Handles a high snap. Lets it go. Right pylon. It is. Incomplete. Chris Dawn the target and a matchup of ones. Keith Abney wins this round.
Along with James Wesley, I'm Ari Temkin, Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. And, James, we've really leaned into the idea that there is no off-season in college football. And there's no better example of that than what you can hear as a part of Big 12 Radio on TuneIn today and every day. You've got that Big 12 Power Hour, which starts at 1. Remember, this show replays until 1 o'clock. It's live from 7 to 10, 8 to 11 Eastern. Then from 11 to 2 Eastern, 10 to 1 Central. And then after that, we get the Big 12 Power Hour, Spring Preview, TCU at 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern Time, which also features our interview of the day, which will be with Steve Sabins, the West Virginia baseball coach. Coming up in 10 minutes from now, we're going to talk with Steve Sabins about West Virginia baseball. And then later on today, you get the best at each position series, the defensive line, the defensive tackles, linebackers. That's at 3 o'clock Central. And then our Road to Arlington today replays at 3 o'clock after that as well. So make sure to download the TuneIn app if you have not yet already and search Big 12. That way you get the Big 12 Radio streaming right to your ears.
This schedule grid is delightful. All the different things that we've been doing as part of our spring previews and post-spring breakdowns and the Road to Arlington, best position, top newcomers. We hit it all getting you ready for college football and the season that is going to be upon us very, very soon.
Rapidly approaching. We're, just a few weeks, 8 weeks now or so away from media days?
Yeah, it's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming.
All right, it's time now for a little valid or void. With that in mind, let's hear from our producer, Taman Turner. T-Chains?
Hey, guys. Thanks for that. Okay, so you guys have been doing the Road to Arlington series, talking about Colorado. You guys kind of hit it, my first topic at the end there with Brian Howell. So my first topic is valid or void. Deion Sanders will coach Colorado beyond 2026.
Me? You? Me?
Valid.
Okay.
It's an easy answer there. Look, Deion has not won probably as much as Colorado would have hoped, given how much they're paying him. But the headlines, the conversation, like they're in on conversations with big-time recruits, with big-time players. As long as you have Deion there, you're going to be in those conversations. So I don't think it'll be, 4 years for Deion and done? Is that what it would be?
Yeah.
Even with a new athletic director, I'm just not sure that you can move on from Deion and get anybody that brings you the momentum that Deion has brought. Now, you need more substance. You need to win more football games. But, yeah, in 2026, 2027, he'll be coaching.
Man, I feel like a real curmudgeon during this segment because I'm voiding a lot of these today. I'm voiding that Deion will be back. And I don't think that it has anything to do with wins or losses. He will not get fired. The contract is very real, but also the pressure is very real, and it's building. But ultimately, that's not why. A $33 million buyout like Colorado can't afford to pay that. He's going to be there as long as he wants to be there. But he can retire at any time. He doesn't need the money. He's Coach Prime. He can retire at any time without him owing the school money or the school owing him money. And just the bladder cancer that he says is resolved. But the last 2 seasons, something's come up health-wise with Deion. And that's my biggest concern. And if I stack all of these various health things, the fact that they're not winning football games, the fact that the roster turnover just hasn't quite done it, their schedule's brutal. I think it's going to be very tough for them to get to a bowl this season. New athletic director, if I put all those little pieces together into one, I lean towards a void that he won't be back beyond 2026.
And you think that's his own doing?
Combination of both. Colorado doesn't fire him. But I think the pressure, ultimately, yes. Yes, I think it's his own doing. For all the factors that I just laid out.
Yeah, and there's 33 million reasons why he will be back in 2027.
There's a split answer right there between the two of you guys. All right, next topic, we're going to the softball diamond. The softball World Series, I should say the Super Regionals have 4 Big 12 teams. So my question is, valid or void, the softball World Series winner will come out of the Big 12.
Yeah, so the Women's College World Series is on the way, but Super Regionals first this weekend. 4 teams enter. James?
Yeah, I thought this was going to be an over-under on how many teams make it to the College World Series because I would start there. 4 is a great number. Having 4 alive is fantastic, but the bracket is brutal for just about everybody, including Texas Tech. They have to play a really good Florida team. Oklahoma State's got the 1 seed in Nebraska. Arizona State's hot, but they play maybe the most talented roster in the country in Texas, and then UCF has to play UCLA. So collectively, I look at...
Yeah, there's only good teams left, James.
But the path to get there, and to not just get there, but also win the College World Series, I would say void. And I'm concerned about Texas Tech. Like Nyjah getting roughed up the way that she did. I know they had that historic comeback, and maybe that's the momentum and the kickstart that they needed, but they have shown some chinks in the armor that we didn't think would be there this year with that, just how talented that roster is.
Yeah, I'm going to validate this. Did you void it or validate it?
I voided it.
Yeah, I'm going to validate this. I think you're sleeping on Texas Tech. Look, they've had the fear of God instilled in them, and I think they come out the other side a way better team for it. I think, overcoming that 8-run deficit with 2 outs in the final inning carries a lot of momentum and weight with it, and they will ride that wave into the College World Series. I think the Big 12 will have 2 teams make it to the World Series. One of those teams will be Texas Tech. Don't ask me to identify the other one, but I'm just going to say 2. And so I think they're going to have a shot to win a national championship. Look, last year, with a worse team with not as much talent, they went all the way to the final game in a best-of-3 series against Texas. This year, I think Texas Tech closes it out, gets it done, and wins a natty. I'm going to validate this. Texas Tech.
Man, that'd be an incredible story, especially everything they've been through this season, the Ole Miss game, having them on the ropes to win the whole thing. Be sweet. I hope it happens.
I got to say, James voiding everything. Go Debbie Downer over here.
Yeah.
Optimistic.
Negative Nick today for some reason. I don't know what's up.
How typical.
I feel great. Don't have a lot going on this afternoon. I'm pumped.
All right, next topic. I think Ari will enjoy this. So, Kansas won the 2026 Big 12 Conference in the regular season in baseball. So, now that the tournament begins today, Kansas will win the 2026 Big 12 baseball tournament. Valid or void?
I'm going to validate this. First conference title for Kansas since 1949. Winning this tournament means a lot, right? Sometimes you look at some of these teams and do they have their sights set on the NCAA tournament and everything beyond that, regional, super regionals, etc. But I think Kansas is a ton to play for. Kansas still wants a super regional, and so if they are a top 8 seed, they'll be able to host a super regional in that case. So, for me, that's the big reason why Kansas will win this tournament. They have a lot to play for. It means a lot. Plus the super regional piece, and they have the double bye, which means they don't play again until Thursday, so they could set up their pitching staff to leverage the fact that they're basically going all the way to the quarterfinals, and that rest advantage is huge. So. For me, we'll talk with Steve Sabins here, and they'll have a big say in that because they just swept Kansas in Lawrence. But Kansas may be able to return the favor on a West Virginia team that maybe eliminated their chances of being a super regional host as well.
Well, I'm going 3 for 3. Sorry, T-Chains.
Unbelievable. K-State's going to win it, I'm sure, right?
Offensive Dan. And no, it has nothing to do with the fact that we're talking with West Virginia's coach in like 10 minutes, but West Virginia is the pick for the Big 12 tournament.
You would.
The 2 seed, they just swept KU in Lawrence. That was the first time in program history that they swept a top 10 ranked team on the road in a 3-game series.
Should we bet?
And I look, absolutely we should.
Take it to West Virginia, I'll take Kansas.
Yes.
How about $10,000?
10,000 just to chill 10K? Yeah, you can have my Volkswagen. West Virginia's got the best ERA in the Big 12. Steve Sabins said it was the best defensive team he's got in the last 11 years. They've got a big lefty who leads the Big 12 in ERA and 79 strikeouts. They've got 2 lefties that are really good, and I just think in a tournament setting where the bats for Kansas, are they going to be hot and cold? I lean West Virginia just being the more consistent team, and their offense has been incredibly balanced and improving as the season progresses.
All right, now to the next topic. We're going to football. Ari and I kind of talked about this last week, James, while you were out.
Oh, you did you?
Yeah, we did. So, valid or void, the SEC will eventually give in, and the CFP will expand to 24 teams.
Eventually, he's doing a lot of heavy lifting here.
Yeah, what is eventually?
10 years? 20 years?
50? Will we be
years?
alive to see it?
So I have 2 today.
Will we be watching AI-generated football games?
2026. And
are we already?
By the end of 2026, by the end of this season, or by the end of 2030. So 1 to 4 year window.
All right, 2030, yeah, definitely. 2014 playoff happens. Ultimately, big picture, I think it happens. I think Greg Sankey's on his high horse, and he's pushing back because he wants to show that he's capable of pushing back and that the college football world has to follow what he wants. But with the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10 all being in favor of the 24 teams, I think it's very doable. Now, there is a clock ticking for 2027. December 1st, 2026 is the deadline to make the changes for next season. I don't think we jump from 12 to 24 in that window, but by 2030, guys, at this rate, college football looks very different, and I do think a much larger playoff is a part of that.
So do they go from 12 to 16 to 24, or are they going from 12 to 24?
I'm going to go 16 first.
Yeah, see, I will validate this as well. I think 2030 is the key. I think it goes from 12 to 24 because the SEC is in no hurry to expand, nor should they be. They're going to get the teams they want to get from their conference in. So will the Big 10. The 2014 playoff benefits the ACC and the Big 12 more than it benefits the SEC and the Big 10. And until it's proven otherwise, they could sit on their hands and do nothing about it. So, but I do think by the time we get to 2030, conferences will look a little bit differently. The ACC could implode by that time, which means the SEC, Big 10, and Big 12 will all be bigger, looking for a bigger slice of the pie. That's where the playoff comes into hand. So I think 2030 is the right number. That's exactly when we'll get to 24, and I don't think they go to 16 first. I think they go straight from 12 to 24.
What do you think the future of the ACC is going to look like? You know I'm a big fan of these sim games in college football 26. So the ACC, let's say 2031. Like, does it exist? Is it what the Pac-12 is now with, like, East Carolina, and they throw in App State, and they just try to survive?
That's the one.
You think that?
Yeah, because not every team is going to get an opportunity to go to the Big 12, the Big 10, or the SEC in that case. So I think the teams that get left, the Oregon State, Washington States of the world, will join up to create a new conference. Maybe it becomes kind of a combination of the Big East and the ACC, and it becomes a really good basketball conference.
Okay, you threw Oregon State and Washington State in there.
Sorry, I just meant like there's going to be a couple of programs that will not end up joining the Big 12 ACC or Big 12 SEC or Big 10.
Yeah.
That's your Oregon State, Washington State of the world.
Or does the Big 12 merge with the ACC and just create this massive super conference? I'm not saying every team from the ACC, but I mean...
Well, I think you've got Duke and North Carolina that will, go to the Big 10. Then you've got Clemson and Florida State that probably go to the SEC.
But then, dude, that leaves like Miami, Louisville, Pitt.
So I think Miami probably ends up at either the Big 10 or the SEC.
Virginia.
Yeah, and now you have your pickets if you're the Big 12.
Yeah.
You go Virginia, Virginia Tech, Louisville. Who else? What are the rivalries?
Did you say Pitt? Pitt, Louisville, NC State, Miami would be on the table. SMU would be on the table. Virginia, like there's still a lot of history in that conference. These programs are down right now, but like there's still a lot of history and a lot of like they could turn it around.
Oh, no question about that. Yeah, no question about that.
I've always liked Virginia Tech. I've just liked them, probably because of Michael Vick. But I'm just like Virginia Tech.
You're an engineer at heart. That's why you code.
That's it.
All right, this is my last topic today, guys. Brendan Sorsby, he's going to play, he's not going to play, he's not going to play, he's going to play. I've been stalking the BYU socials, and they feel some type of way. So, valid or void, BYU should be the favorite in the Big 12 over Texas Tech due to the Brendan Sorsby uncertainty.
Man. Initially, I thought valid, but then I'm looking at this from the Texas Tech lens, and it's, hey, we beat you guys twice, and didn't just beat BYU. I mean, beat them soundly, a combined score of like 60-10 in those two meetings. So how can you say that other team that was on the losing end should be the favorite? I've got to lean Texas Tech here. Number one, I'm starting to think Sorsby is going to be eligible and he is going to play. You've convinced me, sir, that he's going to be on the field. Maybe week 3, maybe week 1. But I think looking at all the historical cases that the NCAA has lost, I think he's going to be there. So, yeah, Texas Tech, dude.
Yeah, I agreed. I think Texas Tech should be the favorite. They are the favorite. I've argued that BYU maybe is closer than most people think. But, again, just look at the 2 data points from last season. And in the conference title game, we thought BYU would be closer. They weren't anything near as close to Texas Tech as we thought they would be. So I know Texas Tech's a different team. But in many ways, BYU is too. They lose their defensive coordinator. They bring back a ton of personnel, but will they be the same? So I think there's certainly some question marks with BYU as much as there is with Texas Tech. So, no, Texas Tech should be the favorite. And if you want to be the favorite, go prove it in the field and go win it. Go do it.
And these teams don't play each other in the regular season. They are a combined 24-1 against teams not named Texas Tech and BYU. So both teams, I think wins and losses, are going to be in the college football playoff. That'd be my bold prediction that both Texas Tech and BYU will play in the Big 12 championship and be in the playoff.
All right, coming up next, Steve Sabins joins us from Surprise, West Virginia baseball coach. It's Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn. Watch it on Big 12 Studios.
Here comes the rush. Jackson off platform. Knocked down on the edge. Keyshawn Elliott running and hitting in space.
It is first and goal. Play fake. Chapin rolling right. Chapin is being pursued, and instead of throwing it away, he takes a sack. So instead of throwing the ball away, he takes a loss of about 4.
Hoover, nice pump fake, but trapped. Keyshawn Elliott again.
Outstanding job by Keyshawn Elliott.
Downs in the last 9 red zone trips. Connors gets the pitch. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to hide. Swallowed up by Keyshawn Elliott. Second leading tackler on the team. That's number 52 on the year.
They take off. Jackson rolls their way. Hit as he throws. And these Sun Devils, they are hitting tonight. No gain there. 2nd and 10. Sprint roll. And a sack. Keyshawn Elliott had Scotty Fox Jr. roll right to him.
Big 12 Radio. Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios, along with James Wesley. I'm Ari Temkin. Let's talk now with West Virginia baseball coach Steve Sabins, who 81-29, just a .736 winning percentage in just a couple of seasons as the head coach of West Virginia. Coach, how are you?
Doing great. How are you guys?
Doing very well, thank you. And a happy belated birthday to you. Was it last week?
It was last week. I'm holding on to my 30s. Got one more year.
That's right. Both James and I are turning 41 this year, so this is a big one for you. 39 last year. You're 30. So hold on as strong as you possibly can, man.
No doubt.
All right. So what a series to go to Kansas against the number one team. Now a team that still wins the conference, but to sweep them to at least keep it open. Just give us a sense of what went on that series. I mean, this is a Kansas team that had not lost at home all year, and you sweep them in 3 straight.
Yeah, we just been playing good baseball. I think the kind of identity of this team, how it's worked out, has just been consistency. We've really pitched and we've really defended, and so when you do that, you got a chance of being every ball game. And the series, I guess it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, we lost at Cincinnati. We missed our big horse. Maxiell was out that weekend, who ended up getting some accolades here in this conference recently. And then we played some extra innings, and so we were a little beat up, but we got healthy. And then we kind of went on a run. We swept Kansas State, and then we swept Kansas, and then beaten TCU 2 out of 3. So we just felt like we got healthy, been consistent all year, and have played great defense. This has probably been the funnest team from a defensive perspective that I've ever coached. Just absolutely nails in the outfield, catching, very athletic. Fielding percentage is top in the league. And so our pitchers have been tremendous. And then if they get barreled or if things happen in the game, it feels like we've been able to neutralize with our defense. And so that part's been fun. I think we got hot at the right time. Kansas is an incredible team with a great coaching staff, really talented. And so when we went in there, I think the kids were just playing confident and kind of played their brand of baseball. And so it was a great weekend for our program.
Yeah, winners of 9 of your last 10. When you say, and I like that word choice, fun, the defense is fun. What makes it fun?
When you watch our games, you have 4 shortstops in the infield, and then you have outfielders that are willing to put their bodies on the line, and then you have a Team USA guy that's catching and then also playing middle infield. And so you just have these like high-end athletes playing all over the field. Armani Guzman is arguably the fastest player in the country playing first base. And so you just have some things that you don't always see. You have an absolute rocket ship at first base. You have a returning super regional shortstop that's playing second base. You have a young kid at shortstop that's been as solid as anybody. And then the best third baseman that I've ever coached in Tyrus Hall, that is also a shortstop at the junior college level. So just athletic. They can run, they can move, they can throw on the run. And so a lot of plays that don't get made or go unnoticed on most teams get made with our team.
Last year was a lot of fun for West Virginia. That Clemson regional was insane. Revisiting it, you were down 6-1 in the regional final against Kentucky. You claw back, take a lead. Then you go down 12-7 heading into the bottom of the 8th inning, and you take a lead. Like, what was it about that team? That game was so much fun to watch. And I'm just reliving it on YouTube now because I remember how much fun it was. How much fun was it to be there? And did you ever think at any point like, "Man, we may not win this game"?
Oh, it was storybook. We kind of started believing because we had actually trailed in every game of that regional. So that was just like the final one more time. Why not go down 5 twice in the championship game? So we trailed in every game, and we went into the regional limping. So I don't know what the numbers were, but if this year we won 9 out of 10, last year it felt like we lost 9 out of 10 basically going into the regional. And so we had some lineup changes. We had like a little bit of magic on our side. We played some different guys that hadn't been in there, got hot at the right time, and then just had these huge come from behind victories. And I think Clemson was maybe hosting their 3rd straight regional.
Yep.
And, obviously put together really good teams. And so to be able to go take down the ACC and the SEC in that regional to move on to the Super was special for our team and for our conference too. I think it really highlighted what the Big 12 is capable of.
Yeah, well said. Completely agree. And then you get LSU in the Super Regional. That's a fun one. One of the toughest, maybe the toughest baseball environment in college baseball. And the eventual national champs So what'd your team learn, take away from that, and was that the best environment you've ever been in?
Yeah, best environment. I think some of it had to do, I mean, a big part of that series, and I don't think I would say this or remember weather about anywhere other than there, because we were actually playing in a swamp. It was 110 degrees. Our guys were struggling with the humidity and the heat. We had a couple starters that were out there that looked like they were melting. And so the atmosphere was incredible. The fan base was great. I think when you get to that point in the season, if you have a good team, your team elevates in those moments. So not necessarily negative. When you play at Clemson and it's sold out and the fans are crazy and the bullpen's kind of on your ass, I think maybe kids take a little while to get used to that or adjust to that. But then going to LSU, I don't think the situation was too big. We played great. We hit great. The humidity and the heat was something that was very different for our guys. I think it actually affected the series. And oh, by the way, you're playing the team that winds up winning the national title, right? And so those things. But I'll remember that we hit Anderson as good as anybody did the entire season. We put up more runs than anybody the entire season. So very competitive offensively. We fell a little bit short on the pitching side last year. We ran out of arms there late, but awesome environment, welcoming. Jay Johnson does a tremendous job. It was just a huge step for our program to go into that environment, play well, and be on that national stage. I think that gives your team some experience going into the postseason this year.
Man, I got to hear more about Armani Guzman. You said that he's the fastest man in the country. He leads the Big 12 in stolen bases, and he plays the position least associated with speed at first base. So break down how does that happen and what he brings to the roster.
Well, Guzman would tell you that I'm screwing up because he's a shortstop. That's the first thing that needs to be known. But he's just a tremendous athlete. He was one of those kids that didn't play a lot his sophomore year, and then in the Big 12 tournament last year, he got 2 pinch hits appearances at Globe Life, and he had 2 great at bats. And at one point, he ran from first to third on a single after getting another hit. And I was like, "Damn it, Guzman, can you play third base? We need a third baseman, man. Like, that's where we're short." And he's like, "I can play short. I can play third for you." And I was challenging him a little bit. And so we ended up starting him at third base in the regional. And he had probably played 20% of the season. And he went on to be the MVP of the regional. So pretty storybook story, like incredible for that kid. So he goes and dominates the regional. He can't get out, leads our team to a super. And then this year, we actually started him in center field to begin the year. He plays right field on a regular basis now. And we just felt like our best team defensively was with him at first base. He's also played some second base this year as well. But he's just a selfless kid that has played Gold Glove first base. Truly Gold Glove elite first base. And it probably is because he's been a shortstop his whole life and could play the shortstop position. But he was just willing. And for him, he's like, "Well, you can either put me in the outfield or get a little bit closer to short. I think I'd rather be closer to short." So he's happy picking it in the infield. He's in every play and has done a great job there.
I'm curious how you manage the Big 12 tournament, because obviously you want to win every game you play, but you also have to keep your eyes on the regional. And, there's probably a balance there, too, in terms of, like, trying to be a high enough seed to host a regional, maybe even a super regional, versus having your guys ready and the staff ready. So just give us a sense of kind of your approach in the tournament. Has that changed year over year? Does it change based on your standing? Just give us a sense of your strategy heading into this Big 12 tournament.
Yeah, it changes year by year based on kind of where your team is at and what they're doing. I think if you had everything locked up and you were the number 1 team in the country and you knew what was going to go on, you could make different decisions. I think we're in a really good situation when you look at all the metrics and the analytics on how this thing hosts or how this thing stacks up for hosts. I feel as good as I ever have in my career as far as earning the right to host. And I think our league has done a really good job putting us in that situation as well. What you just said is correct. It's just balance. It's just you can't go wear your team out. You can't go push the limits on everybody physically and then go to try to win a national title. We're all in this because you want to be the last team standing. And so there's some sort of balance there. But when you have an opportunity to win a championship, there's not many of those, right? You got a regular season, you got a tournament, you got a regional, a super, and then the whole damn thing. And so I kind of view that as you're trying to do each one of those. You get that opportunity to do each one of those. So you got to take it to the best of your ability and go try to win. That being said, you also want your pitchers to throw. I don't think it's always in their best interest to have 2 weeks off to then go throw in the most important game of the season, which is a regional. And so I think those best pitchers touching the ball is important. And so I've told our team, hey, we're going to name a game 1 starter and then everybody else is available. So if we need to throw a game 2 starter in game 1 because we have a chance to win the game and he's our best option, we'll do that. If we need to throw the game 3 starter in game 1, we'll do that, because I think their ability to just continue to touch the ball, have feel, be in competition probably outweighs
the physical
being
fatigue.
So obsessed with pitch count and so obsessed with recovery. We're going to always prioritize that. We're a top team in the country. You prioritize those things, but pitching and playing and competing probably outweighs all that.
Yeah, great point.
Man, that's fascinating. Last thing for me, I mean, you're known as a relentless recruiter, and I remember talking to you about this last year, but how would you describe your approach when it comes to high school versus the portal now, and how has that changed with the addition of the portal?
It's always evolving, and the resources are ever evolving, and the fundraising's always evolving. And so I think you're trying to match up the resources that you have with the roster that you're able to build. So we're always going to prioritize and put a lot of juice and stock into the high school recruits. We just think that the superstars and the first rounders and those big leaguers that we've been able to produce here have come from the high school ranks and then worked their way and developed. And so that has to be a priority. The number of high school kids that we're able to bring in now with a 34-man roster is going to shrink significantly, because you can't have 10 or 12 or 15 high school guys on a 34-man roster. That's the quickest way of getting your ass kicked on a weekly basis in this league. And so there's some sort of balance with experience, with moxie, with feel, trust level, and then like developing younger kids in the wings. And you hopefully you can hand them the ball and you can give them the bat earlier in their careers to develop. But when you think of the J.J. Weatherholts and the Alec Manoas and the Michael Groves, and now you're starting to see the Gavin Kelly emerge as one of those kind of top in first round talents. Those are high school kids from this region. And then for us, I think we've made a lot of national kind of news when it comes to these smaller schools, the Division II, III, NAI junior college players that have developed into great players for our program. We've had at least one weekend starter from the D2 ranks the last 3 seasons. This year we have 2. And so I think it takes some balls, and it takes probably a little bit of our staff believing in their evaluation skills to say, like, it doesn't matter if the guy's a perfect game All-American. It doesn't matter if he's a 5-star recruit. Like, what are we actually looking for? And if that's strikes and ceiling and projectability and ability to get better and work ethic, then let's go with that. It doesn't matter if he's at Newberry College or if he's at Tennessee in the portal. Like, we're just looking for what we're looking for, right? So you got to kind of take the name of the jersey out of the equation.
Yeah, great stuff. And I'm just curious if you could shed some light on the financial realities of the situation. Like, you know, it shouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the SEC has more money to throw around in the portal. Is that what you've noticed without even, you know, getting specific? And what are sort of the financial realities visiting, right, you know, for the Big 12 right now when it comes to, you know, schools' priorities in what they're going to fund, you know, versus the realities of competing at the highest level of this sport?
I think probably the biggest note in general is just inequality, right? So like that's what we're dealing with at this point. And when you talk about some of these pro teams, you're dealing with the same thing. The Dodgers ain't working with the same stuff that the Rays are, and so that's not a new thing in sport. That's a common thing in sport. I think there may be some fallacy when it comes to the SEC, because the bottom line is this year everyone's dealing with $20.5 million that ADs decide how to slice that pie up. and there's not a baseball program in the country that's getting 10% of that pie, right? And so whether that's 2.5 to 7.5%, everybody's fallen in that category in the Power Four level. That the separator at this point is the third party private NIL piece.
Yeah.
And so, are there more donors that are willing to step up for the SEC school or the ACC school? That could be possible in some cases, but then I think there's other areas in Big 12 schools that probably have incredible fan bases, alumni networks, and donors. And West Virginia is certainly one of those. We're the New York Yankees of this state. There's not anything else going on here. It's WVU and WVU sports. And so you just have a lot of people that rally around our program. I can't speak for the other Big 12 schools, but I can imagine if you're in a major metropolitan area with lots of business and a great program, if coaches and administration are willing to work, there's probably some folks that want to see some championships brought to whoever you're talking about, whether that's Houston or if you're in Orlando, Florida. Those are major markets that have actual NIL and NIL needs. And so my guess is that although the SEC gets a lot of attention for money, there's probably a lot of growth opportunities inside this league.
Yeah, well said. Steve Sabins, good luck in the Big 12 tournament. Good luck in the NCAA tournament, the West Virginia baseball coach. Thanks so much, Coach. Be well and take care.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Thanks, Coach.
Great to visit with Steve Sabins, the West Virginia baseball coach. Great insight there into roster building, roster management from the West Virginia coach, a team that swept the eventual Big 12 champs, Kansas, for 3 games at home in Lawrence. 2 teams that certainly should and could make a run to the College World Series in Omaha, West Virginia, and Kansas.
Yeah, and it started with K-State, and that was really a tipping point when they went to Manhattan and swept Kansas State in terms of the direction of those 2 seasons. And then same thing with Kansas. They follow it up, that Sunflower State swing, and then to take 2 out of 3 against a surging TCU team that really needed to win that series for their NCAA tournament hopes. They are on a heater. They've won 9 of their last 10 now going into the Big 12 tournament. West Virginia's hot.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Quarterback on a run through the right side, Isaiah Marshall. He's been through it quite a long time ago. He's here in year 6. Nice catch. Henderson off to the races with a vapor trail behind him. Pistol, QB keeper again, cruising over the right side. First down on 2nd and short. And what do you make of the decision from Jim Zabrowski to kind of change
Big 12 today, Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. A reminder to check out all of the Big 12 Radio content outside of the show, including our Big 12 Today Power Hour starting at 1 o'clock Central, spring preview of TCU. Our interview of the day with Steve Sabins, the West Virginia head coach, which I would advise you not to miss. It's very good stuff. Plus, we're taking a look at the best player at each position for that series, the defensive line, the defensive tackles, and linebackers today at 3 o'clock, and the road to Arlington at 4 o'clock Central, featuring Colorado. That was today's road to Arlington, all coming up on Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. Make sure to always have plugged up and plugged in to TuneIn Radio. Also, tomorrow, Brett Yormark's with us in studio. So we'll have a very in-depth, ongoing conversation with him about the Sorsby situation, about what's going on with the CSC, all of that with Brett Yormark tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I'm most excited to hear what he has to say about the Redbird Capital deal. He's released a couple of statements, but I haven't heard him speak publicly at length about the long game when it comes to that deal. And we've talked a lot about the television partners and the relationship and Redbird and their backstory and their track record of success. And we think that the public is, missing the real story here with the $30 million private equity, if you will, or credit line, I should say, for
I will.
12 schools. You should, if you will, and you will. And I think Brett will, the commish, tomorrow. I'm super excited to hear what he says about that. All right, so you've been watching The Pit?
Yes.
Are there ads in The Pit? Or is it just straight through?
Straight through.
Okay. Do you do any streaming with ads?
Yes.
Where the ads pop up?
Yes.
They seem very targeted at times. Sometimes they're totally random. Other times it's like, I just looked at that on my phone. What's going on here, right? Have you seen any political ads?
It's all I've seen.
Very aggressive, in-your-face political ads.
Very. Not only that, I'm getting texts. I'm getting, things in my mailbox. I thought about just removing my mailbox entirely. Then I can't get it. Then they can't deliver me any mail, which is good because none of the mail I get is things I want.
How often do you check your mail? Is this an everyday thing?
No, every few days.
We'll go, a week.
Yeah.
We wait until that thing's
couple weeks.
Fully loaded.
Fully loaded before I'm willing to walk outside.
Nothing ever good comes in the mail.
No, true. But yeah, they're very, I'll get a text. It's like, this person hates that person.
Yes.
This person hates you. Whoa, okay, what did I do? Why do they hate me?
Super large font, usually impact style, very in your face.
Yeah, or it'll be like, hey, this is so-and-so. I'm a neighbor of yours, and I'm supporting this person. And it's like, really?
All right, so do you think our political ads would be more like, hey, support us, we're doing this and that, or would they be super aggressive, in your face, maybe a little passive aggressive?
Like me and you?
Yeah.
Very in your face.
Very in your face. I thought you might be an in your face guy.
Yeah, not passive aggressive at all. We're going to lay it on very thick.
Okay, so
who are we running against?
Apparently, I think each other.
Oh.
Maybe. We're just trying to take each other down.
Got it. Okay.
For whatever reason.
All right. You're a super sweet guy, but sure, yeah, absolutely. I'm
no.
down for taking you down to Chinatown.
Well, I'm bringing it, and you can bring yours tomorrow. I've got my Ari Timken political ad. So, Taman, it needs to be aggressive. I thought you'd enjoy that.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good. It really cut to the heart pretty quickly.
Yeah, we had to lean into the Brendan Mott moment that you'll never live down.
No, ever.
Happened 3 years ago. We'll never forget it.
And of course, you've had 3 or 4 of those in the same time period.
Totally.
Those aren't as big of a deal, obviously, because I didn't say them.
Exactly. Well, and AI is so advanced now that mistake would never happen in today's world. Would never tell you that a guy that graduated was their best player.
No, definitely not. That's definitely not what happened at all. It's so sophisticated, so detail-oriented, it could never happen.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
The other thing, you mentioned yesterday that your sons have been playing a lot of NBA 2K.
A lot of it.
Okay. I'd like to challenge you to an NBA 2K showdown. 2-on-2.
Well, I didn't say I play.
I didn't say that either.
Got it.
But
You're
there
saying
still
the
needs to be a
boys?
challenge. We need to get in on this. No, I'm saying you and one of your boys, me and one of my boys. Online, 2-on-2 showdown.
Oh, my boys aren't allowed to play online.
That feels right. And probably for good reason. I don't even know if we can play online. I'm assuming we can. I don't understand how the old online community works. But I know that we both have internet. We both have controllers. We both have the game. There's got to be a way.
Can I let you in on a little
Or we could
secret
battle
here?
this out.
I hate NBA 2K.
Okay, why?
Because I suck at it.
Oh, all right. Yeah, we'd smoke you.
Yeah, because my boys are constantly hawking me to play, and I don't love to play video games. To me, I don't know. I just never I play a lot of video games when I was a kid, and I get used to those games. And now that they're totally different and harder to play, I'm out on it.
Lack of processing speed. Your brain just can't keep up.
It's all of that. It's the processing speed. It's the finger speed. It's the messaging between the brain and the fingers. It's the whole thing. And this is one of those things where it's I don't like it because I'm not good at it. And then you're not good at it, so you don't play it more. I should use that as a motivation to play it more and get better at it, but I don't. I just do it the opposite way, which is oh, it sucks. I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, a 2-on-2 showdown.
Dunking is really hard.
If you decide to play.
You have to hit the dunking buttons at the same. It's what?
Dude, I'm just taking a lot of charges. My guys will take charges all over the floor. 3/4 court, we're taking a charge. Help side rotation, we're taking a charge. I know the charge button. Charges on the perimeter. 1-on-1, we're in a stance 1 second. Next second, we're taking a charge.
Yeah.
I dare you to go left.
Yeah, it's exactly it. I've learned some of the buttons, but then my brain isn't quick enough to decide oh no, that's pass, not shoot. And then I'll take a bad shot, and then I get mad and I throw the controller and I'm out.
See, that's the biggest thing. I would love to be a fly on the wall for these epic meltdowns. So if we take it to you guys, we've got to set up a camera or something so I can see you punching your kid in the face, throwing the controller out the window.
Yeah, the only game I'll play with the kids is Mario Kart because I mop the floor with them. It's the only game I'll play with the kids.
That's a throwback. Mario Kart. I never did a lot of Mario Kart. I also didn't do the James
Doesn't
Bond
like fun
game.
things. James Westling.
The James Bond game
on 64.
Yeah,
that's a classic.
Yeah, I never played it. Never got into Call of Duty. No, it was sports games only.
I mean, this political ad is writing itself. Do you like fun? Because my opponent James Westling hates fun.
He hates fun. Storm season, he gets to stay inside all day. 100% win.
You like having fun? Vote for James Westling. That's a vote for no fun.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Ad paid for by proponents of Ari Temkin.
You crushed it already. My wife would strongly agree.
Do you like fun? Well, have I got news for you. And for that reason, James Westling is out.
Lights off by 9 p.m. Everybody tucked in by 9:30. He's your guy. Curfew starts at 8.
No devices, no books, just nice peace and quiet.
Just you and your thoughts.
All right, tomorrow we're back with the road to Arlington, West Virginia. You're not going to want to miss that. Plus, we're getting you ready for the softball super regionals and Big 12 baseball tournament. We'll have some reaction to what happens tonight. It's all part of a Wednesday edition of Big 12 Today. Thanks, of course, to Anthony Smith, our producer with Big 12 Studios. Thanks to Tammy Turner, T-Chains, our tune-in producer. Thanks to James Westling, who doesn't love fun. I'm Ari Temkin. We're back tomorrow, but for now we're out. Peace.